there. Oh, I'll get it for you.
Yeah, thanks.
I'll get it for
Maybe if you
you.
want to,
Whoops, 1 second.
yeah. I mean, I can either read them off the screen later, or you can
No,
email them.
I'll get it. I'll email it to you. Planning zoning board. Get it. Ooh, good. Oh, zoning.
Good evening, all.
Changes. 1 second.
Good evening.
Forgive my tardiness. Zoom decided to upload.
Location notification change. Second. April 3rd. 37. I'm gonna give you this one. I can. No, that's not it. 1 second. This one.
And I think you may have seen Bob said he is attending, so we're just waiting for him.
Let me get this to Stephanie and to hold on. Oops.
I was going to read this in, but I keep hearing someone's voice.
That's Suzanne. She's talking to herself while she's trying to send something to Peter. There's Bob.
I see we have a new member, Molly DeShane, joining us tonight. You're muted, son. Sorry.
Yeah, I tried to change that. It just doesn't want to change today.
I can change it.
Okay, thanks. So let's put my hand here.
All right, Robertson. All right, we have a pretty busy night here, so I'm going to get us started. Good evening, all. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Town of Easton Planning and Zoning Board, Monday, April 3rd, 2023. Okay, in keeping with an act relative to extending certain state of emergency accommodations, this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards quorum. The meeting will be broadcast live and recorded on ECAT. To use Zoom, follow the link on our agenda, which can be found front page of the town's website under the calendar by clicking on tonight's meeting. While board members and applicants will be on video and audio, public participants will join the webinar as an attendee, meaning they are muted with no video feed from them. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, members of the public can be recognized by using the raised hand and Q&A function. If you are joining only by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. Business will be handled at the time that board members are asked to announce themselves when making a motion in a second, so it'll be clear to the audience and minute takers who made the motions. All votes will be by roll call. To ensure we have a quorum, we will now have a roll call. Greg Strange, present. Peter DeShane.
Present.
Thomas Kedem.
Present.
And Robert Stetson.
Present.
Very good. All right, welcome all. First up tonight, we have a internally illuminated sign application for 15 Hampton Drive. Is there anyone here to represent?
Suzanne, were we expecting? Yep, there we go.
Nicole.
Hello, sorry.
It's okay. If you could just name and address for the record, please.
My name is Nicole. I'm here representing Sign Design.
And last name, Nicole?
Oh, I'm sorry, Handrican.
Okay. Go ahead, sorry.
And the address that I'm trying to get a sign approved for is 15 Hamden Drive in Southeastern.
All right. Do you have a screen you're going to share, or is everybody?
I think so. Hold on 1 second. Share screen. Let's see if I can do this. No. Hold on, sorry.
I mean, do you guys, does the board members, do you guys have it? Do you need it? I have it open off of the
Oh,
Yeah.
hold on.
agenda.
Did I-
Oh, looks like something's going to happen here. There we go. Nicole, you are muted.
When I share the screen, it puts me on mute.
Ah.
So I'm over here talking to myself.
Oh, so you, so to speak, you don't get the screen. I get you. Well, I mean, I have the screen. Does everybody else have it? If you click on the agenda, you can have it, or if you've had a chance to review it. I'll let the board decide. Do we want to look at it in silence, or do?
Greg, do you want me to share my screen?
Sure. Why don't you? Thank you.
Okay. Do I have the,
Mm-hmm.
That's the correct one, Lion Labels. It's 23 square foot of signage, and they're face-lit channel letters. I think you guys prefer the channel letters over the boxes. Is that correct?
That's correct. I'm just curious. When you say facelit, what does that mean?
It means that the LEDs are in each of the letters.
Oh, it's still behind. I get it. They're still projecting out. Okay. Just
Correct.
okay.
Mhm.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Nope, that's fine. Yes, it is. The letters, they're mounted onto a raceway. There's no sign there now. They would just like to have these. The frontage of that side of the building is actually like 123 feet. And so our section of light, the sign that we want is 23 square feet.
Sure. Yep. Understand.
So I don't
Okay.
know. What else would you like to know?
That's
Do you have
fine.
any
That's good.
questions?
Board members, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the sign for Lion Labels.
Kevin, second.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor, Greg Strange, aye. Robert Stetson,
Aye.
Peter DeShane,
Aye.
Thomas Kedem.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, wrong button. Okay, next up, we have an A&R plan review, 149 Lincoln Street, A&R number 23-300, Mark Perrin. Is Mark going to be joining us? Yeah, I imagine that's who has their hand raised.
Hello,
Good evening, sir.
can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, we can. Just to get us started legally, let's give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Mark Perrin, relation to 149 Lincoln Street, T&M Realty Corp.
Très bien. And do you have a screen you're going to share?
I do not. I was hoping it was posted. I mean, I have the plan in front of me. I just don't know how to do that.
Okay. Stephanie, you want to work your magic?
yep,
Thank you.
We need the younger generation to start getting into real estate. They handle the technology much easier, much quicker. And I'm just teasing, Mark.
You are correct, though.
I'm not told that too often in these parts, so thank you.
Can you see my screen?
I can,
Yes, I can, yeah.
thank you.
Mark, I'm not doing your presentation for you.
Oh, okay, I didn't know you were waiting on me. Okay, so thank you again for the board for taking the time to discuss this tonight. In a nutshell, I believe the board at one point reviewed this parcel before we actually created this lot in order for the endorsement from the planning board for us to get a variance from the ZBA for a small lot exemption for both frontage and lot size. The ZBA did grant that variance on October 26th. So I'm here this evening to create Lot 1, which is being created off of a parcel that was map 15U, Lot 12. And also we're creating Lot 2, which will change because we're hopefully in the near future we'll be bringing to your attention a 3-lot subdivision where you can see the existing house on Lincoln Street. You can see how the radius of the new road is going to come in right next to the existing house that we are preserving per the Eastern Historical Society's recommendation. So we're creating Lot 1, which is what the A&R plan is about, hopefully looking for endorsement tonight, which contains 12,329 square feet. And as I said previously, we had a variance granted on this on October 26th that has since been recorded and filed with the ZBA's office as proof of recording. And in retrospect, we're creating Lot 2, which contains now 163,911 square feet. But again, for the future, we are going to be coming in front of this board for a subdivision of 3 additional lots. So I respectfully request that, without any questions or whatever, that the board will approve this plan as shown. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thanks. So just for the record, I just want to correct a couple things. Actually, the Easton, first of this board, along with the Easton Historical Commission, not the society, was in favor of this, saving this house on this lot, creating this small lot, in conjunction with the 3-lot subdivision. And one thing I hadn't thought of, and now I see it, I guess I always assumed that this A&R would come in as part of the subdivision proposal, or at least at the same time. So Stephanie, I'll throw this to you as well. So what happens, we approve this tonight, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember the conditions of the ZBA variance. But what keeps this from something different happens to Lot 2? You know what I'm saying? It doesn't get developed, or we had created this lot to save it. Just wondering what the time frame is for the subdivision.
I would say, Greg, that within 30 days, what I did want to do is do a preliminary review with potentially Stephanie and yourself or any of the board members that want to prior to filing the definitive plan. But we are close to, what I say within 30 days, hopefully, to at least, if not file formally for a definitive subdivision plan, at least requesting a review prior to, because I think you had recommended, hey, Mark, when you get the plan close, bring it to my attention. So if there's any, feedback from you prior to file a public hearing, that we would have that capability to make adjustments if need be.
Okay, just the way you were saying it made it sound like tonight. I was like, oh, it sounds like you might be waiting a couple of years, and that I was concerned about, because who knows going to be on this board or in Stephanie's position, 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now. So.
I spoke with my engineers today to check on the progress, and they thought I'd have a solid plan within 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
For lot number 2.
Very good. Stephanie or board members, questions, comments?
No, and just to answer your question, Greg, the decision from the Board of Appeals does reference the fact that they asked for this lot, and it would be in conjunction with the subdivision.
So do we need to do anything different?
I have a question. I have a question. Why don't we wait the 30 days and do everything together?
Well, in retrospect to me, both my legal counsel, because this is gonna be a separated, it's not part of the subdivision. It's hence why I got the variance, and we're making it a separate lot with a variance. So it's separate from the subdivision, and hence, like I said, in working in retrospect with both the planning board, the historical commission, and the ZBA, this needs to be separated anyway. This is what was proposed for the variance, this exact lot. So, again,
No, we understand that. I guess we all just assumed it was going to happen at the same time. So I think that, I mean, I just know that's my concern. Not that you're not an honest, upstanding person. We just have to think of the situations we're creating. So Stephanie, what were we going to say something more? I didn't mean to.
No,
well,
I
sorry, Stephanie, I didn't mean to interrupt.
but the decision it talked about the subdivision, and it also talked about that, the house, was being preserved.
Right. Which we are doing. I do not see any changes from this because I'm very comfortable with how this is, because originally we're gonna have propose a 4-lot subdivision with the road. And the people who visited the site have seen the road feasibility wise had to go right through the house. So we definitely made some adjustments to cooperate with the
Sure.
Historic Commission.
Okay.
So,
And then, does the variance requires it recorded with the smaller lot? Is that like part of the way that works? Like with the Registry of Deeds?
Yes,
Has that been done?
the
Matt?
variance does need, in order to be acted on, it does need to be recorded.
the variance was recorded. I believe
Yeah.
Suzanne has that information.
Yep. Okay. So then and then this A&R plan, it references the variance itself, but not like where it was recorded. Is that?
I have the recording information if you need me to get that.
Oh no, actually it says it right there. No, it's right there in the middle, under number 6, item 6 on the left.
Right here.
Yeah, I mean, right. So it's almost like, regardless of even if we changed our minds over the last few months, I mean, now it's just an A&R, right? I mean, it's not even. I mean, what would we really argue about here besides the facts that we know led
Well,
us?
I don't think anybody's arguing, but
No, no.
I've lived long enough in this world and in this business to know
No,
what if
I know where
somebody
you're coming from,
comes along
Greg,
and
but I'm
says,
just thinking. I was thinking like, once it's done by the Board of Appeals, anyways, what else
right. Well, this
would
board
be outstanding to not?
This board will have, right, but I'm just concerned. I'm not concerned about the creation of the lot. I'm concerned about the preservation of the house.
Yep, gotcha.
And Mark's first presentation tonight, or first statement, I heard it a little differently. It sounded like it might be a little while before they come in here. And
That's
I
my
just wanted
bad,
this wrapped
Greg.
up like a nice, neat bundle, so.
If I gave that, I couldn't get on my engineers quick enough today, so when do you see us filing the definitive subdivision plan? So everything's been perked out there. That's official by both the Eastern Board of Health, so we've perked every lot. And now we're just doing our,
Sure. No, I understand. Engineers are slow these days. So that's, I mean, you still have to come to this board to get your approval, so.
Well, I mean, would
Very
it be
short
burdensome
term.
to mention the preservation of the house under those notes on the left? I mean, is that unreasonable for us to ask, or just out of place, or?
No, I don't think so. Why don't you
So-
propose some wording?
Would that be, yeah?
well, doesn't the variance require that, sir?
Mhm.
The variance would be null and void if I didn't preserve the house.
Is that correct, Stephanie?
I'd have to look at it again. Which I can probably do somewhat quickly here.
I'm certainly not gonna get a building permit for this lot if that house got knocked down for some reason. So it would do me no good. Again, I like that everybody wants to dot their i's, cross their t's, but our
Yeah, no, I understand understand. I just want to make sure that if we have to dot or cross anything, that we're doing it. So it's a little unusual circumstance, so I just try to,
So.
that's why I'm asking the expert.
Is it part of the agreement to, when you say preserve, what that means? What is going to be done to this house? It's going
It's going to be preserved.
what that means? What exactly?
I think the last section of when they gave me the variance, I think they made stipulations, all exterior materials of the existing house shall remain in place, or if replacement is necessitated, I don't want to read this all to you, but I think Stephanie's scrolling down, or somebody is. But the back page kind of dictates why this variance was granted and what I was willing to do and agreed to. And I've worked with Greg on this, and I'm in the process right now. That's my next step, because I want to preserve the house. So I want to get approval from the Historic Commission for any materials, windows, etc., that I plan on replacing that meet the criteria of the variance in the ZBA approval for my variance, and the Historic Commission, working with them. So there is stipulations, I believe, A, B, C, and D, as to, and I actually have an addition plan.
What, okay, so I don't see what Mr. Perrin is referencing in this decision.
I'm referencing to page 4 of the variance.
This is page 4. It's the signature page.
And mine's a little different than what I have here. So go, yep, Eastern Board of Appeals. I don't know why I missed it, because I have A, B, C, and D. Finally, from the Board of Appeals.
Suzanne, can you
I
jump
think
in
that
here?
might be because they added some language.
I don't recall that. We could look at the recorded one too.
Yeah, is that 53 Lincoln? Is that what, the other,
142.
or 142, sorry.
I think this is it.
That's a different variance. Yeah.
Yeah, this is not it.
Oh, this is not it. Oh, okay.
No,
No,
that's
it's
the
a-
other one I got a variance on.
Oh, then we need the 149.
Correct.
Ah, okay, so, oh, I'm in the wrong folder. I am so sorry.
But you're not wrong, Stephanie, because that is me too, 142.
There we go. I was a little
Right.
surprised there for a minute. Okay.
Right.
Go. There we go.
ABC.
Yeah. So this is the Planning and Zoning Board in consultation with the Historical Commission require the following conditions. And there they are. All exterior materials shall remain in place if a replacement is necessitated by condition. The replacement will be with same material, for example, wood clapboards and wood exterior trim. All existing windows shall be replaced with wood windows with simulated divided light grills on the exterior. Any changes to the exterior shall be submitted to the Planning and Zoning Board for approval in consultation with the Historical Commission. And any proposed addition to the exterior shall be in keeping with the scale period design and detailing of the existing dwelling. And all plans shall be submitted to the Planning and Zoning Board for review and approval.
So I would say that my variance is definitely dictated on me preserving the house, without me just saying I'm going to do it. And I'm well on my way to start ready to not only preserve, but get approvals from the Historic Commission and the Planning Board on renovations I plan on doing.
Okay. Board members, any questions or comments? You okay with that?
Motion to endorse the A&R plan.
Kevin, Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor? Greg Strange, aye. Peter DeShane,
Aye.
Thomas Kedem,
Aye.
and Robert Stetson.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Take care.
All right. Next up, we have site plan review 95 Belmont Street. Belmont Street Realty LLC. I believe I saw Mr. Farrier in the audience, perhaps. Is this right, Mr. Farrier?
Yes.
Oh, I guess I didn't see Mr. Farrier. Forgive me. Wrong engineering firm.
I,
Been a long day.
Scott Rogers is here, but I think he's with J.K. Holmgren's office, but he might be here for 518 Washington. But Scott, if you're here and could raise your hand if you're here for this meeting as well.
Hi, Stephanie. This is Nicole Youth here for 95 Belmont Street.
Yeah, hi, we can hear you.
Okay, yep, hi. So we're here for a site plan endorsement. We previously submitted the engineering plans, and we'd also filed a waiver request, basically just stating that by not including lighting, snow removal, and plantings in the plans, we're not changing anything to the footprint, to the exterior of the building. We're just finishing a garage space on the interior. We're adding a handicap spot in the parking area, as well as a handicap ramp. After speaking to our engineer, Brian Dunn from MBL Engineering, he had recommended that since we had already previously used these engineering plans for the Conservation Committee a couple of weeks back, that would only make sense to use the same engineering plans since we're only adding one handicap parking spot and a handicap ramp.
I'll wait to hear your thoughts, Stephanie.
Okay. So Mr. Youssef is correct that they're actually fitting out the garage to use as a second unit. The first thing we noted is that the plan indicates this is a zoning district. The zoning district is business industrial with a medical marijuana overlay district. That's incorrect. It is in the business district. The plans do not include a table with the following information, which again, based on the use, I do think it's important in this being a plan. The minimum lot area, frontage, yard setbacks, etc., minimum lot coverage, and the parking schedule based on the proposed use of the site. The plan does not show any existing or proposed signs. There is, I believe, a sign already there, a standing sign out front that notices the building, the current occupant. Let's see. So one of the comments I had, the plan shows an existing landscaped area in front of the northeast side of the building that will presumably remain. And there are 3 mature trees along the easterly property line. And they're showing that there is a stockade fence, but it does not extend all the way to the road. And they're proposing to reconstruct the stockade fence and extend it up to the sidewalk. I think there's not a sidewalk on that side of Belmont Street, but extend it up to the road. It's manicured lawns and mature trees, and it's kind of a nice view when you're coming up. If you're heading east on Belmont Street and you see it, they have nice landscaping, it's well maintained. You look across to the 99 in the area. I know that might sound a little funny, but they have a nice, well manicured lawn out there. So the stockade fence kind of provides a visual, it does provide a visual barrier, but it's actually not protecting landscaping should remain. I know that they did submit with the application the vegetation management plan for the side and rear where it's heavily vegetated, and it looks like mostly what you're proposing is to remove invasive materials.
Correct.
So again, that provides, because it is vegetation, it does provide a buffer between that and the adjoining properties. So knowing that most of that landscaping hopefully will exist, or something will be replaced there. And I just suggested that, the board may want to know the location of outdoor lighting since a new use is being approved. Granted, they're currently operating, there don't seem to be problems there, but. And, yeah, snow storage wouldn't appear to be a problem. So generally, they're not introducing any new impervious surface, so they don't need stormwater management. And the only comment I had about the handicapped accessibility were that floor plans weren't provided, so it would be reasonable to assume the additional unit would be restricted to the existing garage area and its associated entrance, but the ramp appears to solely service the existing office space. So maybe if the applicant could provide some clarity on that.
So I think if you look at the plan, the way that the ramp is being introduced, it's kind of at an angle so that it's bifurcated to go into both entrances.
Are you able to show the plan?
I'm not, unfortunately. I can pull up the plan myself, but I can't.
Plan shows this, as I understand, I can just jump in to move this along. So I see two entrances called out on the plan. One is sort of in the middle of the main structure on the side of that front bump out, and then one is sort of what would have been probably the breezeway originally when this was a house.
Correct.
I see a ramp that serves the first, on that first bump. It appears the second entrance has a porch or a stoop with a couple of stairs, which the ramp doesn't go to. So I guess you'll ask me how is that entrance being served with accessible?
So the page that I'm looking at is
I'm at C2.1, just I didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay, nope, thank you.
Is there a different?
Yep, I'm at C21 as well. And if you see the ramp there, originally the way that we had drawn it is if you look where the arrow's going down, where that storm area is, we were going to, depending on, because I think it's one or two steps that we have there, we were thinking about either extending the entrance of the stoop to that existing handicap entrance. But I mean, it's really only a step or two. So I don't think it would be much different to just put that whole, when we put that whole ramp in, to just have one piece that goes down and then one piece that goes back around to the other opening. So the engineer kind of drew it in where he drew that second box.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because it's just going to be one piece, because it's really just one step to get to that door.
But how is a step accessible? And again, I mean, I guess for clarity, I mean, what happens inside this building is actually the purview of the building inspector.
Right.
And if it doesn't meet ADA requirements, you wouldn't get your building permit. But I just for the record, I don't see how that second entrance, and maybe it's not required, but I don't see how that's not serviced by the ramp, at least the way it's drawn.
I
So
see.
if it's intended to be, if it's intended to be serviced by the ramp, then you need to revise that. But so and then Stephanie, I don't know if I heard you correct. I thought I heard you say that it doesn't show frontage dimensions or setbacks, but there is frontage on here, 109.71 on Belmont, and there is a
yes.
line that shows the building setback, but I don't see a table. Of course, this is an existing structure. I don't see a table that says what the setbacks are, but so it would probably make sense, since this would be a legal document, just to either a table or on those setbacks, just put a dimension mark there. And then in terms of the fence, are those trees going to be coming down? Because I see the fence goes right near them. And I'm not really sure, I mean, let's face it, if up the road you wanted to put a fence in, I'm not so sure you have to come for site plan review. But, so I'm just curious your thoughts to, the planning director's thoughts regarding the.
There was no talk about moving those trees that on, on the adjoining portion of the land. Anything that was ever going to be removed was just going to be done through the conservation committee, anything that was overhanging on the building. But as far as any other additional tree removal, there is no plans to do that.
I got you. So the tree's tall enough that the fence won't interfere with it.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So that's the only comments I have. Board members, any questions or comments? Or Stephanie, if you have anything further you want to talk about?
No, I mean, I've just driven by this a million times because I work close to it, and I mean, the landscaping looks good, so I don't see that we have to require that, a new plan with landscaping. And for the lighting, I mean, lighting and parking, I've just never noticed that there's any type of possible problem there. I mean, I think, the business has run, normally, and, whoever, if there are two professional, companies occupying it, I think they'll just, have the proper landscaping that I think they need, and lighting, I mean, so.
Bob or Amas, you guys have any questions or comments?
No.
Nothing here.
So I think the biggest thing, I guess, the ramp, but just, okay, is if it needs to go to that next entrance, and this is a site plan, it should have some dimensions on it. Just like the parking spaces should have dimensions on them. Because again, these are legal documents, and our rules and regs do call out. Of course, ADA specifies what you need for that, for handicap parking or accessible parking. Is the overhead door going to remain?
I'm sorry, the overhead door?
Yeah, the garage door, is that going to remain?
No, the garage door is it's just going to be walled up.
Walled up, okay. So, right, so here's another thing. So the plan calls for an overhead door, so I think it would be good to note, to get rid of that. And I think we just need a little clarity on that, on the ramp. Whether, if it's going to go all the way to that, whether it's 1 or 2 steps, or, but I don't see how something's, you can't be accessible with a step. It has to be a 112 pitch maximum ramp, if required by the building inspector. So maybe if we get a little clarity on that, we can tighten up this plan.
So you'd like a revised plan?
Well, yeah, I mean, again, not to, I mean, there's no dimensions on the parking spaces, no dimensions on the ramps.
Yeah.
And to Stephanie's point, it does show the building setback, but we normally have, whether there's a table in there that talks about the setbacks or dimension on there. It does have the frontage, but I think, and I get it, they took existing plan, these things aren't as important for Concom.
Yep.
I just think there's a couple of things, this being site plan review, I think there's a couple, those small items should be on there.
So do you think we could make a motion based on that, or do you think we need to continue?
Well, I think, I'll leave that to the board, but I think that's kind of a tough precedent. That's it's enough material. It's not like it's heavy lifting, but that's a lot of material to, it's one thing if it's all we need a light specification, but
Okay.
Because I'm not so sure there's a solution for that ramp. Is there going to be enough clearance to get into the building? So I'd like to see that.
Yep.
I'd like to see that wrapped up and put on a plan. Because otherwise, why do we have a site plan review if we're just going to pass the buck up the road?
Okay. Great points.
So, do you think we can continue this to the next meeting and get those items on there? And did I miss anything else, anyone?
Just a proposal that I would have. Is there any way maybe I can submit a letter with a revised portion of that plan, just so you can see the dimensions on both the parking lot and the ramp? If we could do that, I mean, if that solves the issue, then maybe I could just submit that independently to the town. And again, I don't know how, if the board has to can only review it at these meetings, or if they can do it in between, but I'll leave that up to the board.
Yeah, it's public hearings. We can only do it at the meeting, but I'll throw it out to the board. I've made my thought, but we are a democracy here, so If you guys want to do engineering via letter, have at it. My days are numbered anyways.
I'll make a motion to continue to the next hearing.
Kevin, second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor, Greg Strange, aye. Peter DeShane,
Aye.
Thomas Kedem,
Aye.
and Robert Stetson.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Sorry, sir. We try to get you out quick, but
No, no worries. Thank you so much.
unfortunately, this didn't get caught ahead of time. So, all right. We'll see you in 3 weeks.
Yep, bye.
All right. Thank you. All right. Close that. With that agenda.
And Greg, for the next one, I'm going to need people to raise their hands because I don't recognize any of the.
Okay, so yeah, next up we have 518 Washington Street Site Plan Review, Holmgren Engineering, Congregation of the Holy Cross. I see a hand up, Scott Rogers.
Can you hear me?
Good evening, Mr. Rogers.
So, for the
Just
record,
name and address for the record, please, and then
yes,
Rogers. Thanks.
for the record, my name is Scott Roger from JK Holmgren Engineering. With me this evening is Michael Radner from Radner Design Associates. This will
Welcome.
be what I would consider kind of an introduction meeting. Just for the record, we did get a proposal from Beta Engineering through Jennifer Carlino from the Conservation Commission. We have not yet filed with Conservation, but we hope to do that in the near future. Beta Engineering will be doing the review for stormwater. So this is really going to be kind of an introduction meeting to introduce you to the project. So it is at 518 Washington Street, as you said, Holy Cross Family Ministries. Just a quick introduction. We are going to be putting in a new driveway and a new parking area. In that general vicinity, there's 8 existing spaces. The new parking area will have 16 parking spaces, including 4 ADA spaces. We're also proposing a rather decorative plaza area and a lot of amenities that go with that. And I'm going to turn it over to Michael Radner, who will give you some more detail on that, those amenities, if you will.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Michael Radner with Radner Design Associates, Landscape Architects. We're at 3 Allied Drive in Dedham. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Thank you. And welcome.
And so I do have a slideshow for you this evening. And oops, this is something that happened. There we go. Hopefully that's filling your screen.
I have it, yep, sure.
Great. So I'm going to give you a little background on the facility and what happens there. Talk a little bit about the site plan. I'll turn it back to Scott, who's going to give some information on the design engineering, and then I'll finish up with some discussion of landscaping and amenities. So I've been working with the people at the Holy Cross Family Ministries for about 13 months now on this project, and we are just to give you a little context here, and north is the left on the screen here. You can see the north arrow. So Washington Street, Route 138 is along this line here, and then you can see basically this, this, I want to say, vast holdings, land holdings of Stonehill College. They have a very large campus, and the Holy Cross Family Ministries actually leases land from the college in this location And then there's another associated Catholic Charities organization that is leasing this office building here, almost to the corner of the intersection. So this is our campus. We are adjacent to several different facilities on the Stonehill campus. These are athletic fields here. You can see the wooded areas here. This is a residential facility for the some of the staff there. And if I can show you the existing conditions here, top left is, so what happens here is that this is the Museum of Family Prayer. This building that is in the existing building here, you can see it has two wings, and the Family Prayer Museum is on the right-hand side, and the administrative offices. This is sort of the eastern headquarters of the Holy Cross Family Ministry. They also have an office in, I think they're headquartered in Notre Dame, Indiana, and I think they have a West Coast office as well. But this is the East Coast administrative and corporate offices for this ministry here. So this is an entry drive here. I apologize for being so small, and there's a drop off in the middle. Turn around here, and then some parking spaces in front, and then a majority of the parking spaces are in the back of the building. All of our work is happening in the front of the building. Here is the existing structure. There's a circular entry off of this. I wish I had turned my camera a little bit to the left when I took this picture, but I didn't capture the whole drop off. But this is that circular drop off that's in front of the building. There's some statuary in the middle of this, and this becomes important because this circular drop off is going to turn into a pedestrian plaza. Another big feature of the campus here is these prayer stations, and they have this this rosary path that leads out from the building, which is in the back. I'm looking back towards the building, and it's this pathway, and these prayer stations are little areas that come off of the main path where you would come and pray the rosary. And then in this configuration, you turn around and go back. So what they want to do on this, and here's this rosary path here, just a paved walkway, and you can see the little prayer stations that come off of that. What they want to do was they're putting on a small addition onto the front of this building here. This is becoming a pedestrian plaza from vehicular. We are, and I'm going to show you the plan, we are relocating the entry drive a little bit to the north. The parking lot becomes slightly reconfigured. And then the big move is that our rosary path is going to wind its way through these existing woods and create a loop, and then come back on itself to the existing, to our future plaza over here. So here's what that site plan looks like. Our existing driveway is about in this location, kind of right on center with this, what is right now the circular drop-off area. So we have a new driveway entry coming in. We have additional parking coming into this location. We have a pedestrian plaza here, and our statue of Mary is right in the center of that, as it is today, just to orient you. Our addition onto the building, which is essentially a new vestibule. There's really no programming that's going in there other than the sarcophagus of Father Peyton, and this is the Father Peyton Center. Father Peyton is going to be placed in there, and he's in another location in the building right now. And then the rosary path you can see here with the 5 stations, which are called the 5 mysteries. And each praying station has a little landscape area, and I'll show you that in a moment. And then along here, and if you've ever been onto the Stonehill College campus, there's a grotto actually somewhat to the north of here. And what they would like to have is a Lord's grotto built out in this location, and they can have, say, Mass out here, or have, so people can come and light candles and so forth. And then swing back through into this plaza and return to the building. And that's just a close-up of the plaza, and we're going to be doing improvements there, like improved paving. We have a number of statuary that's going in this space. They have the ability to hold events out here. So it's just a really a much improved landscape than they have currently right now. Little rendering of an aerial view that we've done of this, so it gives you a flavor of this, what we're thinking of as a European style plaza. In there, it's what they have now is really not befitting to the function that goes on in the space. So this is really more about accommodating what they're already doing in there in a more gracious way. And people do visit this museum from all over the country and all over the world. So, you know, we're trying to make this really into more of a world-class facility. This is a view looking from the parking. I would probably say it's probably from here, looking into the plaza space from the parking. And these are our raised planters here. We have the shaded plaza. There's our Mary statue in the middle. And that gives you a flavor, of the space that we're trying to achieve there. Here's our rosary path, just a little bit of close up on that, and the grotto space. And then these are the prayer stations that happen along that path. And these are benches here, and people can be here. And these are glass panels that are going to be mounted on these benches, similar to something like this. You recognize this as the Holocaust Memorial in downtown Boston. This is the idea that we're going to have these engraved panels and where people can be praying the rosary as they go along. And that is actually a picture of the grotto that's on the Stonehill College campus. We kind of took that and superimposed it onto our landscape to have a vision of what this space would look like, which is really mostly grass and some benches for seating there as well. So that's what we envision the landscape development to look like. So I'm going to stop right there in the orientation phase, and I'll let Scott now talk about the engineering.
Thank you, Michael.
You need me to share?
I might, because I was having the same problem as the other applicant where when I share the screen, I get muted.
That's interesting. Let me see if I can. Let me see. Let me get rid of this screen. Hang on one second. How's that, Scott?
Perfect. Michael, can you flip to sheet?
Yes, let me get to the beginning. Okay. Whoops. I went too far.
You can go over to just sheet C2 for me. So as Michael pointed out, you can see on the site plan here, obviously it's been surveyed. You can see the driveway coming up off the horseshoe driveway, the circular driveway with the small parking area on it would be the west side of the building. Michael had mentioned that kind of the shape of that building with the circular section in the middle and the larger parking lot in the rear. With the new proposed, if you can go to sheet C3, you can see that we are relocating the access driveway to the north, as Michael had mentioned. You can see the curvilinear nature of the new parking areas with landscaped islands between sections of parking. We have added 4 ADA spaces on the eastern side. There's 16 new spaces in that particular parking lot, so we have gained parking here. And that obviously ties back into the parking area that goes to the rear of the building. As Michael had mentioned too, you can see the shaded, the hatched area, if you will, where that plaza is going to be. And to the east of that, up against the building, there's a relatively small addition. And Michael had mentioned really just enclosing that vestibule. Right now, it's just basically a concrete entryway, a rather large concrete entryway, but that'll be enclosed as a vestibule addition to the building. And Michael had shown you some really good pictures of that plaza. And then as you head towards the south, and just for reference, you can see it on the south or the bottom middle of my page, a project that was approved by Conservation and by your board for My Brother's Keeper, which is under construction currently. So this is a parcel of land that adjoins or abuts My Brother's Keeper. And that rosary path that Michael was talking about, the existing one, pretty much runs parallel to Washington Street, more or less, and that does connect to the parking area at My Brother's Keeper. So these particular uses are very similar in nature, but also linked together via that pedestrian pathway. And then if you go to sheet C4, Michael. That one before was a fire truck turn plan that we did for the fire department to show that we have the capability of getting fire trucks around the building in the parking lot in the rear as well. So this particular is the grading and drainage plan, and you can see the new parking area on the north that will be drained via, I'm going to call it sort of old-fashioned methods, if you will, catch basins and drain manholes piped into a sediment forebay and a rather large infiltration basin that's kind of on the north. One of the reasons why we made that so curvilinear and large an area was to make the slopes gentle versus, you know, your typical engineering that unfortunately a lot of us sometimes do, just square basins with very small rounded corners. So we tried to use the topography and make it fit in more with the natural landscape. It's going to be obviously made of grass. And Michael will get into more detail of how we're handling all these basins from a landscape architecture point of view. The remaining plaza area, so basically west of the plaza, in between that loop rail as mentioned to you and the new driveway, there's relatively smaller than the first one I mentioned, infiltration basin that'll handle that plaza drainage, if you will. And then to the south of all that, we have several, I believe it's 5 bioretention areas. So we're using low impact development techniques here. And I should note that, you know, there is obviously drainage for the existing parking lot, but in the area where the wooded area that we're putting in the rosary paths and all that, there's basically a pedestrian walkway that's made out of bituminous concrete pavement, asphalt pavement, if you will, but there's no stormwater management facilities to speak of. That walkway just basically sheet flows into a grass area and then into the wetland. So the introduction of new stormwater management techniques, some green initiative techniques in the form of bioretention areas will allow us to handle the new impervious areas. Now, granted, the actual impervious areas that are going to be utilized by vehicles, cars, and trucks for that matter, is relatively small. And even the areas to the south, the rosary paths and the bench areas, they're pretty small areas in square footage compared to the overall size of this parcel of land. But they are bioretention areas and relatively shallow basins, and they're all interconnected. So what essentially will happen, they are designed to handle the 100-year storm, but when you get into larger storm events, there'll be a yard drain in them. So they'll essentially fill up, and then the larger storm event will overflow into the yard drain, and they'll be interconnected with pipes to the next basin. So essentially, there's 4 of them that are interconnected, and the last particular basin is on the eastern side up against the 50-foot buffer of that bordering vegetative wetland that you can see, kind of like bottom right of my plan. You can see the hatched area. There's a wetland area over there. So as I mentioned to you before, we have not yet filed with conservation, but because we are in the 100-foot buffer, we will be filing with conservation with a notice of intent. And we did get a proposal from Beta to do that stormwater review. So with that being said, I'd like to turn it back over to Michael, who's going to talk about the landscape architectural elements.
So I'll just take a few moments here to go into a little bit of detail on our planting approach, because essentially this is a landscape project. They're making a big investment into this facility, and I want to emphasize all of those infiltration basins that Scott was just talking about are in this location, this shade of green here. This is the sediment forebay. This is another infiltration. This is another infiltration. So the sort of vast landscape area that's being devoted to meet stormwater regulations, you know, with every challenge we see an opportunity. And we're basically taking what is a monoculture lawn right now and turning those into meadows. So all of these spaces in here, and space in here that's not an infiltration basin, we're creating a diverse habitat of native meadows in there. I think it fits with the mission of this particular institution. And then in the plaza area here, we have a little bit more formal raised beds in these areas here to give it a little more formal look at the entrance. So, you know, this is our vision of what these meadows could look like. It's certainly much different than a mowed grass area, providing habitat, pollinator habitat, certainly less mowing, less consumption of fossil fuels that are being you know, spent on this facility. And so we're really excited about this, and the owner is very excited too. And then to take a look at that plaza area, this is, as I said, are a little more formal, sort of parterre hedges in here, which has a little more formality to it, a little more decorative in those areas. These are our parking lot trees, maples and pin oaks, dogwoods in certain areas that are going to be decorative. And these are just some images that we're using to give you an idea of what that plaza, the plantings in that plaza would look like. So I think it's going to be really, really dramatic, as I said. And then there's some examples of our plant palette in here. If anyone's really interested in plants, I can certainly kind of circle back to that if you like. And then you have a lighting plan as part of your package here. We are replacing the lighting that is currently in this parking area. It's quite dated. So we have a new parking lot light fixture. And by the way, everything here is dark sky compliant. It's all LED. We can control the light cutoffs very, very well. So we have these parking lot lights that are sort of along here, and that's represented here. And we have a pedestrian scale light, which is going to happen in the plaza area. Okay, and then we have these light bollards, and we are going to light the bollard path through here. They do anticipate some nighttime use. I don't think it will be, I know that it won't be, you know, sort of an every night consistent thing. I think it's on festivals and things like that. So those lights won't always be on. And I'm certainly not going to get into the photometrics of this. I'll have your review engineer will take a look at that, give us their opinion. So we're at at the end of the presentation and happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you very much. I wish all the plans that came into us were that thorough and that prepared. So.
I'm just gonna swing back and get to the big site plan. There we go. You can refer to that.
So board members, I know preliminary, obviously they'll be coming back to us once they hear back from the peer review, but any questions or comments at this point?
Oh, could we just review like the traffic circulation around the back, just so I mean, I know the property reasonably well, but just so I can picture it on like the overview.
So here's Washington Street.
Mhm.
And this is the existing, there's an existing loop drive that comes in and continues onto the campus.
Mhm.
So right now we come off of that and there's a drop off here and then there's a parking lot that just kind of goes here.
Mhm.
And then you go around the back of the building. So the majority of the parking is back here. And we're just shifting it over a little bit to the west, I guess, northwest, and adding more visitor space to this front.
Yeah. Okay, and then are there any plan changes for the entrance, like right at Washington Street?
No.
Yeah, so it just has like a couple like brick type like wall type things.
Yeah, there's
side is that?
two. I think there's a monument wall on each side with a sign on it, and we're not changing. We may do some additional planting there to dress it up, but there's no substantive changes there now.
Yep. And are there any new signs posed for the front?
No.
Maybe, but no. Yeah. Okay.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question, and are you minimizing the number of trees you need to take down in order to make that path for the prayer location?
That's a great question. Thank you. So this wooded area is the short answer is we are absolutely minimizing the number of trees. Scott, I don't know that I think we're taking down a couple of small trees in here, but the reason that the path is the way that you see it is, and the way that these little infiltration areas are sort of tortured through here, so we can minimize the removal of existing vegetation. There are a number of nice trees in here. I would say that the quality of these woods back here varies greatly. This southern part is a little more open, a little more scrubby. These trees have a little more value to them, but we've taken great care to sort of thread our way through the woods to minimize the removal.
Will you consider adding trees, especially to give some more privacy on the south area from Washington Street to that prayer location?
Along here?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, I think that's something we could look at. It is a fairly shaded area here, and the existing vegetation that's grown up in there does provide a fairly good buffer. But we could certainly look at opportunities in there to maybe plant something that would tolerate shade a little bit better. But I think if you ever wanted to take a walk out there and just to get a sense of it, I think you would be satisfied that this is all just. I mean, there's nothing tall in here. I don't even know that you would see any of it from the street.
Yeah, I think those woods are pretty dense there.
Yeah.
Michael, just for the record, between Washington Street and probably the first tree that we're up against is almost 100 feet there. So there's a pretty dense section of woods, and that's the narrowest spot that you were just pointing at.
Here?
Yeah, that's about 100 feet there. So
yeah.
What's happening to the existing rosary stations, like the existing walkway? Are those being removed?
So those are being removed.
Mm-hmm.
Where our just zoom in a little bit here. So our new walkway basically meets the existing walkway at this point. This point. And then there are two more of these rosary stations, one here, and those will be removed. So these will become landscape.
Okay, right, and you might it might stay like the similar design for now, and then maybe they'll add landscaping over the years or something along that walkway. But I mean, it's already pretty nice, so it's not like it needs a lot of work, right?
Right, exactly.
I visited the museum recently. Is that staying on the same place?
Yes. Yeah, they've actually done, this is all very recently renovated, and they've done it in stages. The museum is beautiful. It's something to see. They've renovated their offices completely right before COVID. So then the place has been fairly low population since then, but they're really ramping up their activities in there. But yeah, there's no, other than the addition here, they're not doing anything to the interior of the building at this point.
And the museum will stay on that site, or
Yes.
are plans to expand?
No, there are no plans to expand right now.
Anyone else? Questions or comments?
I think that the improvements on the exterior want to reflect the improvements that they've done on the interior.
Sure. Well, I'd say it's a great project. Well thought. What a fun. I'd love to build the grotto. Too bad I wasn't a mason. Stephanie, do you have anything you want to add before we wrap this?
Yep.
You're
Beautiful.
muted,
Yep. I have a couple of questions. One, there's reference that a daily mass will be broadcast. And my question was, is that going to be inside or outside? It's like a simulcast. And I'm sure I'm using old terminology.
So as we're the professional consultants, I don't want to get too far into the daily operations of what they're doing there, but they do have a daily mass now inside there is chapel in there, but I do believe that the intention would be to have the ability to hold mass outside. I don't think that it will be a daily thing, but I want to get to the owner and consult with them and see what their programming plans are.
Yeah, and the reason I asked the question is someone in the office was reading through the application and they questioned whether this was something that was, and I did not think it would be based on the design and what you have here, but if it was something that would be loudly broadcast. And again, the area is set back, so it doesn't look like there would be a concern with noise near the
and we have sound requirements that are in a bylaw, which for any property, if there was ever an issue, it could always be referred to.
That would be
Yeah,
good.
let us go back to the staff there, and we'll give you a better, more definitive response.
Okay, and then on the sidewalks, you show handicapped ramps next to the accessible parking spaces, but I did not see the ramps at other locations of the sidewalk. So is sidewalk level and no?
The overall grading on the site it's a fairly flat site. If I went back and showed you a picture of that drop-off area, it's all, the whole plaza is graded at less than 2%. So it's all, the whole thing is handicap accessible. There's really no dramatic grades in there. So there's no other need for ramps other than getting from the handicap parking spaces onto the sidewalk.
Except for the rain gardens.
And then just the other comment, there's a lot of ornamental and varietals shown for the landscaping that's not the meadows. The meadows look wonderful. And the plant material generally is supposed to be native species.
Well, yep, we did see that, and as in my description of how we would like the plaza to appear, we chose the plant materials very carefully to achieve a certain type of look. I guess I would ask, put it to the board to maybe have that discussion, but I guess, as part of our overall landscape development, where I would say probably 95% of our landscape area is going to be native meadows and native plantings, that area around the plaza, if you give us a little latitude to achieve our dream of what we want that to look like, it's very difficult to do it with an all native palette.
Right. Bravo. As an avid gardener myself, I think you've done an excellent job, better than we've seen in my 18 years on this board of introducing and trying to reintroduce native species. But yet to create a European plaza, as you said, I think it's fine to bring in some perennials that aren't invasive. And I think you've done a great job. I think to tie ourselves to 100% native, we've never done that as a board, or people have come in and told us they're going to do it, and then they change it anyways, and it never gets checked or enforced. And bravo on your plant selection. Keep it going.
Thank you.
Anyone else before we continue this? So then I guess I would ask Stephanie and the applicants, you're certainly more familiar with where things stand with the peer review process. So should we continue this out? When should we continue this out to? How many meetings? I know our next meeting is in 3 weeks.
What do you think, Scott? You're muted.
Sorry. By the time we file with conservation and get Beta's review, we're probably going to be looking at being back the first meeting in May, I would say.
May 8th, I think.
8th.
When is assuming this is wrapped up?
May 8th.
I'm sorry.
May 8th, yeah. When's construction going to start? Is that this year, or it would be 24?
I anticipate it's going to start this year. They're actively fundraising as a charitable organization. This is what they need to do to fund the construction. So I anticipate, it's not a large building, so I anticipate that they would certainly be, our goal is to break ground this year.
Yeah, I wonder what the going rate is on a grotto these days. Anyways, enough of that horseplay. Okay, so we're going to continue this out to May 8th. I don't care to make the motion.
Motion to continue to May 8th, 518 Washington Street, SPR.
Second, Stetson.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor: Greg Strange, aye. Robert Stetson.
Aye.
Peter DeShane.
Aye.
Ms. Cadam.
Aye.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen. Look forward to seeing you on the 8th.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience. I know it's kind of a long presentation, but
It was good. It was a good one. Nice and thorough.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. So next up, we have our public hearings for proposed zoning amendments. And I believe Peter has a script to read us in on.
Yes. Stephanie was emailing those to me, so let me grab these. See, the first that I have here is, sorry, excuse me. Okay, Suzanne, it's all in one.
You can read the original ad that came at 6:30.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
The town of Easton Northwood public hearing location change, or should I keep on going?
Either one.
Okay. In accordance with the provisions of Chapter 40A, Section 5 MGL, the Easton Planning and Zoning Board will hold a remote public hearing on Monday, April 3rd, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom for the purpose of receiving public comments sorry. Concerning the following amendments to the Easton zoning bylaw, chapter 235 of the Easton Town Code. 235 appendix A-1, traditional zoning districts table of use regulations. Correct typo in the I industrial column by adding A to the instances where ZBA is shown only as ZB. Appendix A-2, special zoning districts table of use regulations, F2, add the words conducted partly, that word inadvertently omitted. 235-47, floodplain overlay district, FPOD, ensure the town's floodplain overlay district is compliant with FEMA regulations for local floodplain management. 235, appendix A-2, special zoning districts table of use regulations, principal uses A, residential uses 3, multifamily dwelling, furnace village district, furnace village notes. 2, to review a potential modification related to the allowed number of multifamily units. All are invited to participate. The link to join the meeting is at web.zoom.us. Meeting ID or to join by phone. Copies of the proposed bylaw amendments are available for review at the Planning and Economic Development Office at 136 Elm Street, Northeastern Massachusetts during regular business hours, and are also available on the Planning Board page at eastonmass.us. This notice is also available at masspublicnotices.org. Any person interested or wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place designated for the public hearing. Gregory Strange, Chair.
Thank you, Peter. Wonderfully done as always. No, give yourself a pat on the back. So, all right, Stephanie, you want to, I think you've got the first.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen. I think it's easier just to show everyone. I think everyone has these in front of them. So the first item, again, is a housekeeping item. This, where in many instances under the industrial column right here in the table of uses for the special zoning districts table, it is just ZB and it should be ZBA. It probably got truncated in translation. So this would be to update that and show that as ZBA. And then in section F2, it reads sale or rental of motor vehicles or boats and accessory storage conducted partly or wholly, it reads storage or wholly within. The words conducted partly were omitted when this table was created. So this would just be to add those words back in. So that's the first one. The second article is the floodplain overlay district, which we discussed at the last meeting. I don't know if any of the board members have any questions about that. This is to update the bylaw with current floodplain overlay district management requirements in order to stay compliant with the requirements, the FEMA requirements for the National Flood Insurance Program. I know, Peter, you had some questions, which I think we answered.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you.
Stephanie, I'm just going to jump in for a second. I'm just wondering, it might make sense, since we have 4 of these, and I think a couple may have a little discussion, why don't we vote on them as we go?
Okay, that sounds good.
We have to do them separately anyway. So why don't we, the first one seems pretty cut and dry. So if there's any questions or comments, I'll entertain them. Otherwise, I'd love a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend the first 2 changes to the appendices as we just discussed.
Kevin, second.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor? Greg Strange, aye. Peter Deshane?
Aye.
Thomas Kedem?
Aye.
And Robert Stetson?
Aye.
Great, thanks. Okay, so go ahead, Stephanie. Now we're
Yep.
back to A2.
Okay, so now we're on the, let's see, okay, that was the first
Two, right, yeah,
correction.
two changes to the appendix.
Yeah. Yeah, they were listed separately on the agenda, but I believe that they are one housekeeping article.
Yep.
But it wouldn't hurt to vote again.
Okay, well, my motion was to recommend both of those changes to the
Perfect.
appendix.
Okay.
It's fine.
And that's my backup, the woman of wisdom who tells me whether it's fine or not, the AG's office.
The voice from
Yes.
beyond.
Yep. Okay, so then we have the floodplain overlay district.
Did you,
Again, I don't know
there was
if
a question
anyone
that you had at that first meeting about whether or not, who issues the variance, whether are we a town that can issue that variance, or does the state issue the variance for us?
The state.
Mhm.
That was confirmed.
What type of municipality can issue their own variance, or is that just is that like a national, is that not really applicable to Massachusetts?
Where that variance was, because that was variances to building code.
Oh, right,
and-
okay, yes, oh, right,
Yeah.
yes, it's not really, even though
Yeah.
we're incorporating it into our bylaw, it's kind of a catch-all for everything that has to do with the floodplain, right? Yeah.
Right.
Will this affect like agricultural uses at all? As far
Well,
as, like agricultural uses, as far as like where they can conduct agriculture?
Well, and so a floodplain is a wetland resource area, and if you were conducting agriculture in that, in a floodplain prior to the adoption of the Wetlands Protection Act, as long as it's a continuous use, it doesn't change that.
Yeah, otherwise agriculture is
Yeah,
kind of
but-
subject to its like own set of rules,
Yeah.
right? As far
Yeah.
as like, newer uses.
Yeah. So what you have for permitted uses, right here, section J,
Mhm.
Peter, it says the following uses of low flood damage potential and causing no obstructions to flood flows are encouraged, provided they are permitted in the underlying district and do not require structures, fill, or storage of materials or equipment. So you have agriculture uses such as farming, grazing, truck farming, horticulture, and the like.
Okay, yeah, that's how I read that too. I just
Yep.
see what.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's my understanding. I mean, and one of the things that have been discussed in the past for stormwater, so this is a little off topic, but is providing additional flood storage where you have uses like, I know the city of Newburyport has some recreational fields. And you can see that right here, number 3 is outdoor recreational uses that they know will flood out in a certain storm. And so they don't fill it because it provides flood storage.
Yeah, it's kind of like what they're doing in California, where they realize they can just actually keep the water rather than just letting it like run down into the into the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are the significant changes between this and what is in our existing bylaw?
Let's see. They added some sections like this AH zone drainage that wasn't in the previous zoning. And I think they took away the ability of the board to, and it was actually the planning board. I mean, the zoning board of appeals could approve projects and alterations in a flood hazard area.
And who approves those projects now?
Well, what happens is that if they're proposing alteration, and you'll recall this was the case with Sawmill, both in that the flood zone was not properly mapped. So they needed to go through a process of analysis and determine where exactly the flood zone was and where the floodway was. And then design their project such that they either weren't filling it, or if they were filling portions of the floodplain, which they were, that they were providing adequate compensatory storage. So that gets reviewed through the Conservation Commission process and through the Planning Board process with your peer review.
Right, so now it sounds like the ability of the planning board and or conservation to review this was replaced by the designation of a community floodplain administrator?
No, the
No.
floodplain administrator does not have that ability. I don't believe.
I think that was towards the end, maybe.
Well, I'm looking at C, it talks about the designation of a floodplain administrator. It's the
Let me go back.
environmental planner, right? Land use
That's really just someone who is keeping an eye and paying attention to what's going on with the floodplain, answering questions that might come in, directing people, residents to the flood maps.
So would that position or part of the scope of their work be to try to identify parts of the town that don't have a floodplain delineated or defined, so that we wouldn't run into 3-year delays on important economic development projects like we did with Sawmill?
That's not really the role of the floodplain manager.
No. So who's...
Yeah, I see what you mean though, Greg, like to your point, like, whereas the planning board, you know, where the ultimate, you know, we vote on the stormwater management, but this is more all encompassing than just stormwater. So it's not all that clear, like which of those different, you know, responsibilities interact and where they end up.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just see so many contradictions in our processes. You know, we being a planning board and zoning board spend years working with our staff and working with professionals that are hired by the town to create zoning for things like economic development and open space preservation and, you know, and all the things that we work on. But then we run into a huge, unnecessary, in my opinion, delay, like we did on Sawmill. And the very thing we were trying to create, small A affordable housing, you know, 3 years go by, and in this case, you know, rates jump and it becomes a different type of product. And then a lot of our mitigation that we worked so hard to negotiate with goes out the door. And I'm just wondering how can we improve that? I see we're bringing on this new floodplain overlay district, but it doesn't address a real world problem that we had. And
well, it's not a new district. It is.
No, but it's a new bylaw, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what I meant. It's a whole new bylaw. Who wrote this bylaw? Where did this come from?
It's enhanced quite a bit.
Sure. Okay.
That was my question, Greg.
What was that, Bob? I'm sorry.
Who wrote it? Where did this come from?
So it was the 2020, that was my question, was the 2020 FEMA model bylaw guidance, or from the state, right?
Yes.
That the thing?
It comes from FEMA through their state representative to us.
And there was model bylaw language, so how does that get us to where we are now, where like, does every town and city in the United States have something, or county or whatever, have something like very similar to this?
Yes, if they want to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program.
Well, how much flexibility is there to revise it?
Not a lot.
I mean,
that's well.
So if we,
I mean, that may answer the question. I'm kind of unsatisfied by the answer, but to me, I mean, I know nothing about this program, and you know, in order to make any kind of a decision on the issues that Greg, I think, is validly raising, I think we need to know what kind of discretion that we have, and we need to know, you know, how important this program is. I mean, I don't feel competent that I know the answer to either of those questions right
So what I can tell you about the National Flood Insurance Program is that it offers flood insurance to residents whose properties are open, are located in floodplains at a discount. That discount is still, what I've heard from talking to people on average is probably twice as much as what someone pays for regular house insurance. And if a community is not in compliance with the standards, like having these standards that you're managing your floodplain areas and not allowing them to be filled, and kind of keeping an eye on them, that you won't be able to participate as a community in that program. And therefore, people who are in the floodplain will have to pay full price for floodplain insurance.
Do we have a sense for how many residents in Easton that would apply to?
I don't know. I don't have the exact number.
Well, I mean, I'm not asking for an exact number. I'm just asking for a sense. I mean, I have no clue.
Well, you can look at the GIS and add that layer, and you can get a sense of add like a parcel viewer with the layer of the floodplain. You can get an idea of where that all falls.
I mean, Peter, do you have a sense of percentages of residents? I mean,
no, right? Yeah, we could look at that. Maybe we could look at that next meeting.
I think, well, a couple things. I think an important question, just following up on something Stephanie just said, is so currently is Easton not in compliance with our floodplain overlay district? And as I understand it, Stephanie, you given our schedule and the fact we're not meeting for 3 weeks, all of these zoning bylaws will need to be voted on tonight, correct?
Correct.
So my question is, because I'm very hesitant, it doesn't sound like any of us really have a handle on this. We really haven't, we were given these papers, but they're right. I would love to, given how many people we have working on town hall on this, I'd love to know some real world examples of what is going to happen. And if we're not currently in compliance, then why don't we kick this up the road till special town meeting in the fall, so that this board can get a better handle on what this rather extensive revision is all about.
yeah, and if I could just add on to that, if we aren't in compliance, I'd like to know why. Because if we just have to accept 100% of this language, so be it. But I'd like to know what kind of flexibility that we have to make revisions.
Well, for example, there's specific language in here, the section I'm on right now. You have permits are required for all proposed development in the floodplain overlay district. The town of Easton requires a permit for all proposed construction. That currently happens through the review processes, whether it's a project that is subject to wetlands regulations, or whether it's coming through the planning board for development. Or if it's someone's single family home that is being proposed, or a commercial project. But a commercial project would come to the planning board through site plan review, but a single family home that is just seeking a building permit, the building inspector reviews that and ensures that the property is not being developed in the floodplain.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's just not all that clear to us, how it affects the town, but also like which of these are required for the FEMA insurance and which were just like recommended language, or was there like who made the decision on what to keep and what to take out of the model bylaw? Or are those fair questions that we could understand, like how we got to this point of the draft?
Yeah, I mean, like take variances, for example. I've seen a couple of different variance provisions, and it looks like you can get them if you, based on the model language, if you apply to certain, in a certain way. I mean, can we revise that so that, we can grant variances? I'm just throwing it out there as an example of the type of discretion I'm wondering if we have.
Yeah, actually, the model bylaw said for municipalities that can issue variances, but that doesn't tell us, which ones can and which can't.
Right.
But that was what the model bylaw said, and whether that, how that plays into everything else, I'm not sure.
So it this section right here says variances to the floodplain zoning bylaw shall only be issued upon a showing of good and sufficient cause, a determination that failure to grant the variance would result in exceptional hardship to the applicant, and determination that the granting of the variance will not result in increased flood heights, additional threats to public safety, extraordinary public expense, create nuisances, cause fraud, etc. So in this instance, really what they're referencing is that if, in order to show that it won't result in increased flood heights, additional threats to public safety, etc., you have to demonstrate that you've provided, that those things won't occur, or compensatory storage has been provided for the filled or altered flood zone.
Yeah, and that doesn't sound on its face unreasonable. I guess the question is, who gets to make the decision?
I think to say this, here we go, right here, yeah.
There are 7 pages here of writing, and I really don't feel that I can put my hands around it.
I'm just wondering, and forgive me if I missed it, but I didn't hear an answer or response to the question I asked. Is our current overlay?
No, we're not out of compliance. There is a deadline that they're looking to get everyone on, and I don't have that date handy. I should.
Well, I mean, I don't, I can't get a handle on this one, and I don't feel we really, we've been handed new text, but I don't, understand why we necessarily need to do this. And I hear the same reticence on the part of my fellow board members. So if there's, if we are currently in compliance, not saying this can't happen in the future, but I think we spend so much time discussing and vetting and researching and crafting documents. I'm just wondering if maybe this is a little premature, and I throw that question to the board.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable approving this right now. And I'm not saying I wouldn't. I'm at a little bit of an information deficit.
Right. I feel the same way. I mean, I wouldn't, if the 3 of you were all, thumbs up on it, absolutely. But I'm not, unless I'm missing something, I'm not hearing that. So I'm just trying to cut to the chase, I guess. So we can decide what we want to do. And if we're not going to be penalized as a community, and if our current, I think, boy, we've spent so much time through the years. I mean, Easton is one of the more active towns in terms of crafting conservation and land preservation documents of similar communities. So I think we should tread lightly if we're not grasping, like you said, Bob, information deficit. I think that's an excellent way. It'd be nice to get a thoughtful presentation on this from someone, so that the board could give a more informed
yeah. I mean, Stephanie,
analysis.
have we received notice from FEMA that we are going to be suspended by a certain date or some? I mean, I'm just on the FEMA website now, and I just see different things, but I'm not sure what I'm supposed to look at.
So we were contacted by the state representative, from FEMA, who has been talking to the various communities in his area, to make sure that towns were updating the zoning. So clearly, I need a lot more information too. This makes sense to me, but I understood it, but not in a way that I can relate it all back to you.
Yeah, I get you.
Oh, does someone want to make a motion to not recommend this at this time, or what would we like to do, folks?
Yeah, I'll make a motion not to recommend at this time, pending further information. Stetson.
Second, DeShane.
Any further discussion? Hearing a... Oh, go ahead, Amos.
I don't know if we could offline, not as part of this decision, but we need kind of a list. We asked a lot of questions, but we asked for comparison in what we have today and what this is adding and what the flexibility, and we have all these questions and issues. Should we list them so whoever comes back, it will come back with us? Should do this offline and just send our thoughts to Stephanie or something and get something back that has some details from us, or we leave
Okay,
it?
but right now we're just discussing the motion on the floor. I agree with what you're saying, but I'd like to keep it more. Are we, any discussion in regards to the motion?
Yeah, I mean, even if anything, I'm just, looks like our FEMA map needs to be updated, but didn't we do that recently?
I'm sorry?
Oh, did we update our FEMA map recently?
So that's done at the federal level, and that was done, gosh, I want to say 2016, but I think it was earlier than that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess now that we've, this one, at least by our recommendation, it will not end up on the warrant, then that would give us plenty of time, like Amos said, to review and understand it, and before the following town meeting.
Yeah. So this is what I'm taking away. One, I do think we need to know what the deadline is that it needs to be adopted. Two, I think we should ask a representative, the representative we've been working with, and see if they can't do a presentation to the board and get some more answers. And we can also highlight the sections, which I probably should have done, that are different from the old.
Yes, and I guess which ones are
mandatory? The existing, I'm sorry.
Which ones are recommendations and which ones are mandatory in order for the town to qualify for FEMA flood insurance?
Okay, so we have a second. Any further discussion pertinent to the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of the motion not to recommend: Greg Strange, aye. Robert Stetson,
aye.
Amos Kedem,
Aye.
And Peter DeShane.
Aye.
All right, great. Thank you all for that. And now we move on to the last one. If I can find the tab. Oh, wait. No,
this is the Furnace Village.
Right. So, as we all recall, so I have a question. When we talked about this at our last meeting, I had mentioned that even though it was written for multifamily, that I had two concerns. One was, the multifamily, where in footnote 2, it used the word unless, so I'll just go back. So Furnace Village, for both Eastman and Depot Street, multifamily dwelling is allowed by special permit with the Planning and Zoning Board. The footnote number 2, which is Eastman and Depot Street, reads, the number of upper story or multifamily units shall be 1 per 5,000 square feet of lot as defined in 230 subchapter 235-60 area with a maximum of 10 in the Depot Street district and 1 for every 2,500 square feet as defined in 235-30 with a maximum of 20 in the Eastman Street subdivision, unless the Planning and Zoning Board grants a special permit for additional units. So when I had asked for this to be discussed and put on the agenda and the warrant, it was that last, unless the Planning and Zoning Board grants a special permit for the reasons I pointed out last week. We also have the same thing on, excuse me, on mixed use, where on all 3 of the, 3 of the 4 Furnace Village District units, Eastman, Depot, and Business, footnote number 6, which says mixed use shall be allowed in the Furnace Village Business District with the following conditions. A, the maximum number of dwelling units shall be no more than 4 units per developable acre, period. The Planning and Zoning Board may grant a special permit for additional units. B, the maximum number of bedrooms per unit shall be no more than 3. So those were the 2 sort of open-ended conditions that I think caused me, I don't think, we did them last year, but I think it left us, I think it was a little open-ended, and I think it resulted in sort of, I think it was Peter or someone last week mentioned, yeah, everybody just came and tried to max out and didn't, we didn't really see a real, nobody tied anything into the purposes of the bylaw. And it was just, I understand it's a business, they just want to max it out. But I thought without anything to backstop it, it's difficult for a board of any type to make sometimes anyways, to make a decision when it's so unanchored, or it has no backup. So those were my concerns, and I'll open it up to you guys for your thoughts, questions, comments.
I think my biggest problem is that the bylaws specifically say that mixed use should be the objective of this area, and this table doesn't say anything about considering mixed use a condition or part of what this table should be regulated.
Well, just to that, I just want to make sure you're not, I think sometimes the way the bylaw was written can be a little tricky because it specifically calls out mixed use and it specifically calls out multifamily. But I think I made this mistake myself when I looked at it a few weeks back. When you look at multifamily and it gives you that footnote number 2, I went down, now it's actually 1A, because I just kind of think that in line. But it's listed under Queeset Commercial District, and it says multifamily units must be part of a mixed use. That's not, I don't know if that's where you're thinking that, but if you look at under multifamily, footnote number 2, under Furnace Village, which is on the next page, there's no talk of mixed use. It's strictly, number of multifamily units. So I don't agree that the bylaw we wrote was everything had to be mixed use. We called out multifamily and when that could be allowed, and we called out mixed use and when they could be allowed. But as someone mentioned at our last meeting, they throw it there, maybe we should require more mixed use, or mixed use if someone wants to take advantage of a, if we don't want to I know Bob's always pro density, but maybe if we, and I don't know who it was, one of you folks last meeting, if someone wants to take advantage of, let the board, allow more as it sees fit, maybe it should be tied into a mixed use. And then to that point, I'd say if we're going to do that, though, we're going to need to specify a certain amount of mixed use, because otherwise we'll get someone we'll get someone that wants to propose an 80 or 100 unit building, and they'll do a 200 square foot office on the first floor and call it mixed use. That's not really mixed use. That's a loophole. So anyways, but I'm not trying to make light of your concerns for mixed use, Amas. I just wanted to make sure you hadn't made the same mistake that I had. But there clearly is a path for just multifamily here. But yeah, maybe we want to limit that to the original quantities and not leave it so open-ended if there's no mixed use.
I mean, so I did make those comments, and I happen to agree with what both of you were saying, actually. And I think one way to deal with it would be to remove that language in the multifamily, kind of the open-ended language, and just so you have kind of a ceiling when it comes to the multifamily. But as you I think just mentioned, leave it open-ended for mixed use, but put some additional requirements so that we don't end up with, and I'm thinking of that project that I think we saw a year or two ago where, it was an office on the first floor, and that's technically mixed use. That's obviously not what we were looking for. But we didn't close that loophole. So I completely agree with both the symptom as well as the prescription here.
So if we did that, the first part's easy. We just line, under the multifamily, we just line it out, right?
Right.
So then you say, okay, so we look at the mixed use. And again, the maximum number shall be 4 per acre, per developable acre. The Planning and Zoning Board may grant a special permit for additional units. To which I say, okay, what, what do we define a percentage of, building area to be mixed use, or how should we? I mean, I guess that's what we'd have to do. You can't, because you don't want to say must have 3 separate businesses. That doesn't make any sense. And the business could be 100 square feet each, right? So, maybe we
should be in footage, maybe.
And I guess the thought is, so when you think back, especially when we were working with Judy Barrett on all these districts, Queesa Commercial District and the village districts and the Furnace Village districts, so often it was sort of, and some of even the architectural the guidelines that she had in originally was all based on first floor commercial, which makes sense, right? That's if it's a food service, or if that's typically what you'd have, and then units could be over it. So we have zoning that allows 3 and sometimes 4 stories to, as called out in the bylaws. So maybe, okay, so does that mean mixed use should be 25% or a third, or something of that degree? Or if we want to leave it a little more open to allow someone to have first floor accessible units for veterans, maybe is it 20% of the building area? I mean, I don't, I toss that out there. And not that this can't be fine tuned again in the future, but I think if we could correct it a little bit now, I think it may help.
I think so. I'm hearing things that I like putting some limits that are written down instead of leaving it open. But I don't know what those limits are. Have a sense. It's saying first floor should be commercial for mixed use. Is that?
I mean,
yeah, I mean, that's typically what you would go for,
I mean, could it be as simple as calling out, non-office, mixed use?
I'm sorry, it could be
as excluding office from the ability to get the bonus.
So are you talking?
You mean like
no
it has to be
space?
retail or food? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Well, or non-office. I mean, but I guess, sometimes there's some synergy there, so that might not be appealing. Yeah, I don't.
We could just say, in granting additional units, the board will consider, the project, like accomplishing some of the goals of the bylaw, right? Being whether it's like open space, or available, like open, usable open space, or affordable housing, or mixed use. We can think of the goals that we put in the bylaw and say, the board will consider, if the project is meeting any of these criteria when they decide if, if the
Yeah.
additional units will be allowed.
You know, you could, to Bob's question point. You know, you could, what if we, you know, said, oh, you know, okay, additional units may be allowed if X% is, you know, commercial, and the, you know, the board, with the board, you know, has board favors, you know, retail and food service type of, you know, you could say, hey, you might get more if you go in this direction. We may be apt, because you're like, say, it's a special permit. We may be apt to give you more if you go in that direction. The uses that we're looking for. You know, we have sewer. We'd like to take advantage of that. We are underserved by food service here because for years we didn't have sewer. These might, you know, that might be a way to do it.
Yeah, but there are also services like hair salons, I don't know, all kind of other services that are good for commercial too. Offices maybe
Right.
not
Yep.
necessary.
True. Yep. No. Good point.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess.
I'm sorry, Amos, could you repeat what you just said?
Services like
Services like hair salons are good.
Yeah, hair salon.
Your microphone's breaking up a little bit, Amos. That's why I was trying to help out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, go back to Bob's original point. You know, I guess I was just trying not to hurt the feelings of those who do office space, but you know, we find a nice way to say we'd like emphasis on things besides office space, because right.
Yeah, but that's kind of to the heart of the matter here. Where you're saying, oh well, we need more density, so there are more people walking around. But then you say, oh well, I don't want an accountant and a lawyer there because that's dead space. But you have more people showing up and walking around, whether it's a car dealership or whatever. I mean, you're still getting like, you know, bodies there that are going to hopefully contribute to, you know, that local zone. So I don't. Maybe we'd have like a picture perfect idea of, you know, like a nice little, you know, restaurant here and some shops here where everyone goes to buy their knickknacks. But, you know, really, you just want to get people there. And I don't think we can over plan it more than that, especially given, you know, the history of how, you know, how we know it's kind of hard to get commercial in the first place. And now we're saying, well, we want the right kind of commercial too. And that might just be like setting the bar a little too high, given, you know, where we are, you know, currently.
You know, I think and I think, Bob, this is where you were kind of going the direction. Is it a balance between being so broadly based right now, which is what it is? There's nothing, you know, the board, this is the maximum number of units you can have unless the board grants a special permit for additional units, with it tying to nothing. But you were talking about the more general kind of what types of, I think it was maybe both you and Peter were talking about what kinds of other uses would make it palatable, or other amenities.
Yeah, so we have like favorite
the
uses, and we have like favorite you know, goals of the district, right? Which would be, you know, we have walkability, or you know, even design, and you know, just, you know, other things that we've talked about in every single, you know, every application, right, and every bylaw planning, you know, session we've done. Right.
So, for example, and this is really kind of an probably not realistic in kind of what's going on right now, but if you use even offices as an example, well, if someone's just going to put in a single office and one person is working there, that's very different from a professional office that might have several employees, or employ quite a few people that might live in the district and be able to benefit from having their employer local and in a walkable area.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like, well, if you went ahead and bought the property thinking you could get like, you know, 25 units on this, and not like, you know, and like put like one office space and one walkway, you know what I mean? Well, I don't know that that's really you know, we're not here that we have to say yes to every single thing just because someone has has their story about how they got to where they are.
Yeah, I mean, as we're talking through this, I kind of agree with Peter's point that, it may be difficult because we can't obviously predict the future. It may be difficult to kind of zero in this bylaw on precisely what we want, because the reality is we're not sure. It's going to depend on the parcel and the developer that's proposing the project. And I think that's a fair point. I wonder if the problem that we've come across on this is that verbiage that I think we're all comfortable removing on the multifamily side. And if that's kind of created a situation where developers are looking at it and saying, well, I'm going to be able to get more units just based on the verbiage of the mixed use, or the amounts that are allowed under the mixed use portion of the bylaw versus the multifamily. Because if you look at it just without that open-ended language, you're allowed less units with the mixed use. Now, that may have been okay pre-pandemic, but I think things have changed so dramatically in the development world, particularly in the last 6 to 8 months. I'm not sure that really flies. I mean, truthfully, if you want, from my vantage point, if you want mixed use, you ought to allow more units, more density than just straight multifamily, because it's going to have to carry it. So, I mean, I part of me wants to say that just removing that language in the multifamily footnote resolves the problem, because we still have, it's still special permit, still coming to us. We still have all the discretion that I think we've kind of built into the process. And maybe, if anything, what we want to do is increase the units that we included under the mixed use.
Yeah, I think we also have to be cognizant and realistic about the geographic limits of the district. Think of, and let's focus on the Eastman district and the Depot district. Because, in the middle, there's the business district, which is that small historic part up the end of and then there's residential. So when you think Eastman, I think, okay, there are a couple parcels that sort of abut both 106, both Eastman Street and Robert Drive, Target Plaza, as you would call it, that are large. And of course, there's other commercial areas up there. There's really no vacancies, but some small buildings that can come down. And then down towards Depot, there's the Shaws, if that ever, that's a big parcel. There's a couple pieces around that. But other than that, the majority of the parcels there are pretty small, and it's going to be difficult to combine them because they're small to begin with. So it's not like there's a huge bonus by combining them. And there's a lot of scattered sort of mom and pop owners. So the maximum of 4 on mixed use that's probably okay on those smaller ones, because you're going to run out of room pretty quick if you have a third of an acre or half of an acre. But on those larger pieces, that could potentially have, I think there's a way to, I kept writing and said, what if, planning and zoning may grant a special permit for additional units when the total project building area is 33%, commercial or business or whatever we want to call it, basically the ground floor. Then the sky's the limit. You can go this board could decide how many units they want, but depending on what can feasibly be done. With Stephanie and I over the last couple of years.
Wait, say that again. How did you word that? 33%?
So right now it says the maximum number of dwelling units shall be no more than 4 per developable acre. This is in mixed use. And then it said the planning and zoning board may grant a special permit for additional units, period. What I'm saying is the maximum number of dwelling units shall be no more than 4 units per acre. Or, then the planning and zoning board may grant a special permit for additional units when the total project building area, we could probably define it a little better, but it is 33% commercial or business. So, whatever terms we want to use. I'm thinking business because that's what's in our definition of
that's
so we're talking, but you're basically talking
a floor.
It's basically a floor.
Yeah. Or maybe I'd have to go back and brush up on the bylaws if Some of the pieces, they maybe could do a 4th floor, but
Yeah.
we have to be
You put an
realistic. I mean,
elevator and you do more units.
yeah,
we
and
will
there's
approve
different
that.
ways to do it. It could be a separate building. I mean, there are ways to do this, you know. It doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
have to be up and down. The board could, right? That you could consider separate building if the piece is large enough. Not most of the district, you're not going to do that. There's just not room. But there are some there's only a few parcels. And that's why I don't mind talking about them here, because there's only a few parcels in both of these districts that can entertain anything of substance.
Yeah, I mean, well, and we just saw one recently come
Right,
up for
right.
discussion. No, yeah, I mean, I think that's an improvement, and it certainly addresses the issue that Amos has brought up. You know, I do wonder if it's a bit heavy in terms of the percentage.
Well, I was going to say that whenever the percentage always is the hang up, right? I mean,
Right.
Well,
people,
but
all they want to do is build a power. I mean, no one
Of
has
course.
wanted to go besides Volkswagen. They haven't wanted to do anything down.
But don't forget.
East.
Yeah, but don't forget. Think
Right.
back. Now we can talk about it because there's a vote. Think of 661 Washington.
Mhm.
First came in all gung ho, loved our bylaw. Right, we tweaked it a little bit. Great. You know, then some things that had nothing to do with this board or town of Easton, you know, made the project not viable. We came back and we kept hearing, okay, the banks want it to be, they want to flip it. Remember, we changed, they wanted 2/3 residential, 1/3 commercial,
Mhm.
you know? And
Right.
think of it, commercial's different. People, unfortunately, we get so many, we don't always get professional developers before us. So they're talking to everybody, listening to everybody. But you know, no one stay ahead of the curve. So for example, if someone had, someone came in recently and talked to us and threw 4 blocks on a plan, but there's no thought on that. There's no, you know, but if someone came in and said, okay, I have this building and maybe the ground floor, I want to make it commercial, whatever use, you know, above that, I want it to be residential. Then someone said, oh, you don't want that. That doesn't work. People said that doesn't work. You know, business don't work if you don't have the right business. But if you wanted to separate the building and if you had the land, then okay, then you do some shared parking and you have a separate building that maybe it's a restaurant, and maybe it's a play space, maybe it's some shared office space. You know, we talk about COVID changing things. So, and a lot of people, you know, I think there's always, I was talking to actually a really world famous CEO at a party a couple nights back. And we were talking about this. And I said, you know, this whole work from home, I know there's a big push to get everybody back home, but it seems not everybody takes, you know, advantage of being away from you know, I know plenty of people that work much more efficiently without having to do, you know, an hour or 2-hour commute each way. But not every business allows that. But just like they have in the cities, you know, in the outskirts of the cities, those sort of shared work incubators. Yeah, I could see that happening out here where you're working from home or you're living in that building, but you know, you have to get away from the kids. You have to get away from your husband. You have to get away from your wife. You have to get out of, you just need a different building. So maybe that, you know, who knows? So this new world that a younger generation than I is going to shape.
All right. Yeah. You can have a conference room. No, I thought about that too. Like
if we could
conference
create,
room.
what we're trying to do is create ways that people can have some vision and some creativity. Unfortunately, what we get so often is people that, I think people just try to get things approved and then they just want to flip the project, frankly. So, you know, if we can make it more attractive, and you know what, if someone wants to put 200 units on something, it's going to get people screaming. But look at this new building code coming in. No one's going to be able to afford houses anymore. It's incredible what's going to happen to the price of houses. And they've already gone through the roof for the last decade. Now, I hate to see, I don't believe in putting everybody in apartments. You know, I'm always talking about diversified housing, but I seem to be losing that battle. And I think, you know, if we're going to have to do more multifamily, well, then let's do Easton proud and let's make it creative and put some buildings up that nobody else has and come up with, you know, demand that these folks think a little stronger and, you know, come up with some creative uses in those buildings. Not a gun shop that shares a parking lot with the residents.
So do you, just kind of to bring it back to my initial point, do you think that we can do that with the mixed use footnote as it stands? in other words, if we get rid of the open-ended piece on the multifamily, do you think that there is sufficient incentive and discretion in that mixed use piece to do what you're proposing?
No, because right now that if you look at our definition of mixed use, someone could come in and propose 100 apartments and have a 100 square foot office, and that's.
But we could say no.
Right, but what if we're not all on the board in the future?
No,
Or
I
if
think
we're-
that's a valid point, and I
And I
remember
think-
that discussion when we were originally drafting too.
right.
I think it's a valid point.
And we have, we have town meetings twice a year, and we've really, in my 18 years on the board, and in the, I don't know, 12 or 13 years I've been the chair, I'm really proud of the bylaws that we've written. Unfortunately, they haven't all been enacted on for a bunch of reasons. And nothing's ever perfect. And we've tweaked stuff and we work with people. So we have town meeting twice a year. So if we change this now, and let's say we go with a third, or if we think, or 25%, we pick a number, right? And then if we find, oh, that's not too much, well, you know what? If someone's really serious, then they can come in and talk to us, and not come in with little squares on paper because they don't want to spend. Someone that understands they need to spend a little money on engineering and a little money on architecture, and come in and give us a nice proposal and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Look at that. Like, we just saw a project that I know it's totally different, but it's germane. That a Holy Cross Center that we just looked at. What a wonderful, really fun project that they came in, and it was well thought out, and they presented it, and they tied into, native species and all these other things. And that's why I spoke up about some of the non-native that they wanted, because, that's okay. We need to there's a little leeway for people to create something, and so if I love getting rid of the thing out of the multifamily, because what I've heard from the townspeople, and what I heard frankly from you guys, when we pulled, Stephanie and I made a decision to pull, and I agree with you on 464, we agreed to pull. That site was just too much with the mixed use and what they were trying to do. Some of it based on lot shape and the fact that there's so much vacant space right around there. I thought, okay, let's kick this off. Let's look at it, like I said, let's look at this more as a district. So this piece, okay, we'll let them go all commercial. I mean, all residential, but we can't do it. And in part, we're really protected because there's really small parcels out there. But on these large parcels, yeah, I don't want to fill them with just apartments, because I know that's not what the residents want, and I don't think that's what we should have. We do need to continue to create some space for businesses, because business, bricks and mortar is not always going to die. I mean, it's here, but it's always going to fluctuate, and we don't have that much that we can afford to get rid of it all. So I think if we, for now, because look, we could talk about this forever. We're under the gun. We have to vote on something tonight if we want to do something. I think if we get rid of that line under the multifamily, and then what you guys are talking about, right from the get-go, you want more. So let's go to, if you think 33 is too much, well, let's say 25% has to be, a commercial or business, whatever.
Let's do it. I'm game. We've got to change things because we aren't getting what we were looking for.
Right. If we think it's a disaster, we can change it. We can change it in November, or it can be changed on the floor. But I think it's.
So just to understand, you want to eliminate note number 2 totally?
So
and write
yeah,
something
no.
different?
So just to be clear, so number 2 footnote. What I want to do is eliminate the portion of the last sentence. So that I'm proposing it would read this: the number of upper story or multifamily units shall be 1 for 5,000 square feet of a lot, as defined, yada yada, area, with a maximum of 10 in the Depot Street district, and 1 for every 2,500 square feet of lot, with a maximum of 20 in the Eastman Street subdistrict. Period. And then the second revision would be on footnote 6A. The maximum number of dwelling units shall be no more than 4 units per developable acre. The planning and zoning board may grant a special permit for additional units when the total project building area is 25%, is a minimum of 25% business or commercial. We have to decide what that word would be.
Yeah, I think that's fine, just.
I like that.
one.
Greg, do you
I like
have that, the one for 6 in writing?
Yeah. Yeah, it's what, so, I mean, it's scribbled, but, so, I would, so just answer me this, board, or Stephanie. So when we want to define the commercial area, or should we call it business use? Business or commercial use, right? I mean, that's what we need to figure out, but I would say the maximum number of dwelling units, this is number 6, the maximum number of dwelling units shall be no more than 4 residential units per developable acre. The Planning and Zoning Board may grant a special permit for additional residential units when the total project building area is a minimum of 25% commercial or business use. And that last commercial business, that's up for I don't know if that's quite the best way to say it, but that's what I come up with right now. I think if we tweak that over the next day or two, I think we're okay. But, or maybe that violates the law. I'm not sure.
Sounds good.
But I think it's a good starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tie this to avoid this grid from developers to maximize the number of apartments for the area they have based on our tables.
Right. And it lets it be done in different ways. You know, it's not like it all has to be in the same building. It could be detached. It's all the same project. I'm sorry, Steph,
look,
I cut you off.
If they want to do the first floor and put four floors total with an elevator, I will be okay with that too. If that provides more open space.
Yeah, exactly. I'm all for going vertical. Yeah, I mean, go vertical.
Well, I was going to suggest that as well.
So I'm just thinking our next discussion is going to be on the MBTA zoning. And, you know, what we put together for potential districts, and that's the operative word is potential, but how that fits in with this proposed change.
Excuse me, Stephanie, I don't believe we took a vote.
No,
we
I
haven't.
don't think we're ready for a vote,
Okay.
or quite ready.
Okay.
Because I mean, that's one of the, I think that's one of the things that the board wants to consider when looking at what areas would comprise the MBTA zoning, and either requiring or giving a density bonus for a project that had mixed use in it.
Right, that's true, but right now, we're making the small changes to the bylaw based on, you know, the last year's experience, whereas MBTA is a whole nother, it's intertwined with everything, but it doesn't necessarily, we don't have to completely plan around it right now.
I agree. Right now, you know, the MBTA zoning, as I think, as I understand it, wouldn't have to be voted on until next year. So we are right now, just looking at corrections. And I think this is a good way to do it, because as this board rolls into discussions about the MBTA zoning, you know, there's been zero discussion by this board on anything that was MBTA zoning. And I hope that this board takes a sort of holistic look at our town and the type of developments we've done in the last 10, 15, 20 years. And really look, not just to make sure we get the MBTA zoning everywhere. Where does it make sense to do it? And maybe this parcel here, maybe they find, or this district, maybe they determine that this is a good space for it. Maybe they determine they don't, but that can always be tweaked next year. You know, if whatever's going to occur the next year with working on MBTA zoning, I hope that this board gets a lot of input from the citizens, because I know a lot of citizens are really concerned with it. And frankly, I think the citizens have kind of been forgotten about during the process. I think it's mostly been a municipal-led.
Well, the process is really just beginning, so.
Well, but a lot of
yes,
substantial work was done last year without 25,000 citizens, frankly.
and public input is essential to this process. I mean, it's one of the
Right.
things.
Let's hope the
that
folks that run it remember that.
the
And
DHCD mentioned.
so I think
quite a
this
bit.
year, to everybody's point, what Amas was saying, I think we should focus on what we're doing right now on this. This can, if this bylaw needs to be, this district needs to be tweaked next year because of something that occurs by this board with the MBTA, then we can deal with it next year. But there's an awful lot of work and hopefully a lot of boisterous and involved citizens, and boisterous in a productive way. I mean, get involved in the next year in the MBTA zoning, because that has the potential, frankly, to really ruin this town. And by that, I mean, if we just go and do it as another blunt planning tool brought down by state law, and we don't, and we don't take it out of the hands of just 2 or 3 people and allow the citizens who live in this town to really craft it, then shame on those running the show.
So just to recap, you're saying footnote 2 would stay as it is?
No, footnote 2 would eliminate, footnote 2 would end.
Oh, it would
after
eliminate the
Eastman
grant
Street
of the special.
sub-district, period.
Okay,
So it would, everything from unless forward would get eliminated on footnote
Okay.
2. And then, and then 6 we just read.
yeah, and so Greg, you were talking a little bit faster than I was writing.
You want to
So
say it again?
Let me just read what I have, and because I think I got most of it. Planning board may grant a special permit when total building area is 25% commercial or business use.
Yeah, the planning and zoning board may grant a special permit for additional residential units when the total project building area is a minimum of 25% commercial or business use.
Okay.
And I would just defer to you guys if there's a better way to say commercial or business, or am I excluding something there? So I think that's the best way to say it. And you know what, we probably should say total project building floor area, just to make it less ambiguous. That way, if you walk on it and it's heated, that's floor area. Or it can be unheated, I guess, too, if it's a warehouse. Not just floor area. If you walk on it.
It's not a grand hall.
Right, right. But it could be a grotto. Peter, I saw you grin a little bit there.
Yeah, got that one.
So what do you gentlemen and lady think?
I'll make a motion to recommend those revisions. Stetson.
Kevin, second.
Oh, hey, we have, I see, I didn't even know, we have.
Yeah, and I'm not quite sure where those are coming from, Greg, because they're
848.
not attendees.
I don't.
Yeah, I looked at the attendees just a couple minutes ago.
Yeah, and these people are not attendees. So I don't know where that's coming from.
No comment.
Reminds me of a song. I've got too much time on my hands. Especially one of those. I'm just gonna leave that. I'm not reading that one. So.
You can type an answer.
It's not up and I'm speechless, but.
Well, I mean, we've been doing these remote meetings for a while, so that's the first time we got some. Comments.
Yeah. All right, does the board want to take a vote?
you think that was Chris Anderson?
Oh, wait, we did vote. Did we not? No, we haven't voted. The motion is on the
All
table.
right, so, yeah, that's right. Do we have a second? I'm sorry, I lost.
Yeah,
control.
Yeah, I second it.
A second, okay, any further discussion? All right, hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of the revisions, Greg Strange, aye, Peter DeShane,
All right.
Thomas Kedem,
Aye.
Robert Stetson.
Aye.
All right, well, the motion passes. Good, I think that was, I think that's a good development. And so Stephanie, could Suzanne or, send those to me tomorrow, just that we would just confirm we're on the same page?
Yes.
Yes.
But I mean, just to make sure, so, all right. Okay. Let's see, let me get back to the agenda. I think we're, oh, so that's right, there's another hearing coming up, I have to recuse myself, don't I?
Yeah, but we've got
Proposed zoning amendments, okay, so meeting minutes, Peter?
I look at them going on.
Wait a
on
minute, you
Friday.
skipped over the MBTA zoning.
Oh, my
Yeah.
goodness.
So this has been a very long meeting and I didn't intend to,
I was
this
just saying,
is,
you want to do it at the next meeting? I don't mean to.
what I'd like to do is the introduction. So
Okay.
that I can get through that and that way people can start thinking and, it won't be like the floodplain.
Can I ask you a question? Just because
Yes.
I know we have some people waiting for the,
There-
roughly how long do
Yep.
you think the introduction will go? Just ballpark. I just
I'm
wanna-
gonna do 10 minutes.
Okay, so everybody that's waiting, in about 10 minutes, we can get to a couple other things, to Weber Farm. I think there's some people waiting on, so, okay, go ahead, Stephanie, I'm sorry.
So I did distribute out to everyone a copy of the final compliance guideline from the MBT, from DHCD. I also sent everyone a copy of our action plan, which roughly is a schedule of the activities that we need to go through to undertake getting the zoning adopted. And Greg, you'll see in there are, in addition to the public meetings that the board will be having, we do call out for what I've put in here. And this we can discuss in more detail as we really get into starting the process. But we're going to create an informative web page that has information out there, keeps people up to date on what's going on, public survey. And again, these are suggestions, conduct a public input session with a first draft, talk with people about what the housing needs are, get input on that. And again, just keep it open and conversation going. I put together a 4-page guide for the board because when Greg was alluding to the zoning implementation review team that was formed last year, that group met for over 4-week period during the month of March last year to review, and it was representative of various boards and staff in the town that work and have relevant experience kind of with housing and just the general growth of the town in general. So the town administrator was part of the conversation, the chair of the select board, the conservation chair. Greg was a member, although he missed some meetings due to his ski accident, unfortunately. And we had representatives from the school committee and the Affordable Housing Trust. And I believe we had someone from the Disabilities Committee, but I can't remember off the top of my head. And they came up with, they recognized that the town needed to respond to this. And one of the things I sent out a couple of weeks ago to the board was a determination from the Attorney General's office that communities must comply with the guidance. It's not an elective process. But one of the things that the review team did discuss was the benefits that the town derived from the different funding programs that the state is requiring we be in compliance with MBTA zoning in order to continue benefiting from those programs. So those goals are outlined here. The principles were organic economic development and growth, development that contributes to environmentally sustainable, vibrant neighborhood centers and commercial districts, and provides affordable housing and other diverse types of housing suitable for all residents. I'm not going to go through all the guiding principles and concepts because there are quite a few here, but I mean, one of the things that the group did talk about was not, I'm going to use the word undermining the town's commercial areas. And Greg has mentioned this a lot during various board meetings, that the town doesn't have a lot of commercial area. So that was an important consideration for folks. Then the guide goes into some general factors that should be considered throughout the development process. One of the questions that came up during the comment period was that the guidance didn't talk about affordability or affordability requirements. And it didn't talk about whether, you know, even though areas like Easton, which doesn't have an MBTA center, we don't have a transit station anywhere. But in that case, you're supposed to look at smart growth type development, which is mixed use type areas. That it didn't talk about allowances for commercial use. So they provided some additional guidance, and basically what they're saying is certainly you can have a mixed use component in your district. You can have commercial. You still need to be able to demonstrate that your district will be able to provide the density that is required. And that's either 15 units per acre or even higher in order to get to that 913 goal, which is the 10% of your current housing stock. And you can have an affordability requirement, but no more than 10% of the units at 80% AMI, unless you can have no more than 20% affordable at or below 80% AMI if it's supported by an economic feasibility analysis. So that's something to be considered as we go through the process. So the thought, some of the things that I've been thinking about, like the mixed use, you could allow a density bonus, just like you're talking about with the zoning that we were just discussing, that would encourage, you know, it would help meet the density requirement, but at the same time encourage the commercial construction as well. And then it goes on, and I think everyone, we've been talking about this for a bit, but what the requirements are for your district. It must be 25 acres, must be contiguous, must be 50 acres in total. Any sub-districts must be a minimum of 5 contiguous acres. And we have a minimum number of multifamily units of 913, which is 10% of our 2020 census housing units. That's real quick, trying to get through this quickly. I did include in the packet the districts that are being considered in part. Some of these areas, like the Foundry Eastman Street area, you already have 25, you have the 15 units per acre with the Avalon development there. And if you add in the other areas, we'll see what we come up with. But it looks like you could meet that density. But these areas all look like potential areas. And what we're going to do is create a baseline where we calculate how many units per acre you can get, taking into consideration number of parking spaces that we would allow, and we'll start with the number that's required for today. I think it's 1.25 cars, parking spaces per unit for a multifamily, and then taking out the undevelopable land within the district. So looking at the Foundry Street, Eastman Street site, there really is very little of that wetland area that we've identified, but we've tried to kind of avoid areas that had a lot of wetlands. And the DHCD has developed a compliance model where we'll plug in all this information. They'll take the GIS data and information and start determining whether or not, based on certain zoning standards that we establish, whether we're hitting the density numbers or not, and then we can tweak that. So does that make sense? People have questions?
Board members, any questions?
Well, I think we'll have a lot of questions as time goes by. How much money is it? I really want to know, like how much money is tied to adopting this program?
Oh, when we put it together last year, the town has received, I'm going to say around $6 million in funding over.
I meant like per year.
12 years. So per year, we generally get between $250,000 to $1 million. I mean, the project.
Yep.
And it really depends, Peter. We were awarded 1.5 million for the downtown area.
Yeah, I thought it was all those programs. Yeah, I know. I'm familiar with most of those.
You know, it wasn't that much, but unfortunately, as Stephanie mentioned recently, the new AG came out and said that there's no option. And we'll get more. What I'd like to do at our next meeting, Stephanie, hopefully we won't have a lot of big things. I'd like to just take an hour to dig into this, get the word out to. We can put something to some of the residents, get them on it too. Because what really concerns me, when this first came up, I panicked. Like, oh wow, because I don't like blunt planning tools. I like things to be organic, and I think the last 15 years in this town, we've done a great job of doing both small, especially here, we don't get to really do anything with 40Bs, but we've done a great job with small A affordable housing, at least, creating some zoning that allows that. And, we created, and you look at what's been disappointing to me is it doesn't seem like the leaders of our town have fought for including the way we've done things. We have, it turns out any property that's in a local historic district is not eligible for this. So that means shovel works comes off. Anything that has there's almost 100 units right there. Anything that has a preservation restriction on it. So there's, when I looked at this, of the 913 units we needed, originally I came up with a plan where we only had to create zoning for maybe another 60 or 70 units, I think it was, or 100. But then a lot of course, there's some people that may, because frankly, I was trying to limit that, because I think we've brought on hundreds of apartments, and I still want to get back to diversified residences, but that's just me. But now, so much of what we've done, based on our geography and our unique history, and the fact that we don't even have a train station, we're just a budding community, we don't even get to use. We have to come up with a higher number. And I'd still like to see, I'd like to see that in writing from the state. I don't understand why we couldn't fight more for the yeoman's work that we've done, especially in our downtown village district, which already has the density, you know. I'd hate
Yeah, I
to
mean,
see-
I guess, yeah, I'm kind of surprised that it just says like, there hasn't really been like any pushback, you know, not maybe on necessarily on our town's level, but just in general. I mean, I'm sure there has, but I mean, in general, like, no, you know, you never really hear about anything like, you know, this, you know, actually pushing back on some of these things that kind of get put out there on us. So
Yeah, well, we're in a unique place because a lot of, you know, we don't have the train station, but yet, you know, we still have to do 10%, and we've done, like I say, a lot of our units we've worked that way, but you know, it's almost like we're being punished for having historic properties. We've worked hard to preserve them, to give bonuses for those. We've celebrated our town and we've created developments around those. And even though they fit exactly what the state is trying to do with this, they're not allowing us to count those. And that's unfair.
Yeah, and if you have too much open space, then you just took out all
Right.
that land too, right? Yeah, so it's like, you know, right, yeah.
No,
Have
exactly.
farmland,
And so
like,
it's,
oh, well,
it's
farmland, so too bad you can't use that because it's a farm, right? Yeah, I mean,
Right.
so yeah.
but that has fallen on deaf ears, unfortunately. So thank you for that, Stephanie. And yeah, I think it's been a long meeting. It's a late night, and you guys still some things to do here. So let's try to keep our next meeting as empty as we can. I know that's, you know, that's easier said than done, but hopefully we won't have anything too big. And then let's dig into this, you know. And if we end up with a big agenda, maybe we dig into this earlier so that we have the energy to get it, because you know, we all work during the day, and now it's coming up on 9:30, and probably not all as spry as we were 3 hours ago. All right, request meeting minutes. Can we do that? No.
No,
Nope, but they were in the packet. I just don't have the date in front of me right now.
Did you have any? They looked fine to me.
No, I didn't have any changes.
March 20th.
March 20th.
I'll make a
Motion
motion
to
to
approve.
approve the meeting minutes from March 20th.
You want to do a second? Because I must beat you to the punch.
Okay, second.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, Greg Strange, aye. Robert Stetson,
Aye.
Thomas Kedem,
Aye.
Peter DeShane.
Aye.
Great, all right. ZBA, last thing before we have a ZBA request for comment, 30 Eisenhower Drive.
Was this just to rebuild a home?
Yeah, I'm trying to open this up. I'm trying to remember what this was.
yeah, so they didn't do a really good job of, I thought, of talking about why it needed the variance, not that it shouldn't be supported. Basically, the house burned and they do want to reconstruct it.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out why I needed a variance either. Setback.
Special
Because,
permit.
right, the building inspector can, I mean,
Oh, it was because the lot is undersized. or
No,
something.
it's over 2 acres, isn't it?
I think it's,
It's 2.41 acres.
Oh,
Actually, Stephanie, it's a special permit.
Oh, did I read it wrong?
well, it has only 76 feet of frontage.
yeah,
triggered
that
this
was the,
permit
that was
application.
so
Oh,
why
yeah.
is it a special permit? I just found it, the information just didn't tell a lot about what they're seeking and why.
Probably because the
Other
proposed
than that there was
structure it's bigger than it was, I bet.
Yeah, I think, but it doesn't look, and it's shifted, it's not in the exact same footprint.
There is a brief. Right?
I didn't see the brief.
Request special permit hearing for the reference project. Pre-existing non-conforming lot only has 76 feet of frontage, which triggered the special permit application. Why wouldn't it be a variance application?
Well, a special permit, because. No, because they're not, it's only because it's a special permit to build a bigger, make a house.
The
a
applicant
larger
is
house
proposing the
on a-
raising of a fire damaged home, which has been rendered
Yeah.
total loss. Total
So-
structure meets the setback requirements and
So-
isn't allowable use in the residential district. The request is essential and desirable.
It would
Loss of
be
the house is-
enlarging. I think the enlargement is a special permit, not a variance.
Oh, because it's a pre-existing non-conforming lot.
Right.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense to you guys?
Frontage.
Yeah, well, I mean, the house appears to be similar in size. It is larger, but I think it's fine.
Okay, motion to recommend the special permit?
Kevin second.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of recommending Greg Strange, aye, Peter DeShane,
Aye.
Robert Stetson,
Aye.
Thomas Kedem.
Aye.
Great, all right. And Chair's report, nothing to report other than that we'll work really hard on ZBA next week. And when I get the wording for the zoning changes that we just worked on tomorrow, I'll forward them to y'all just for one last peek. Any concerns, just contact Stephanie, remember, don't contact me.
Yep.
And you guys are gonna have a discussion regarding Weber Farm Lot 11. I have to recuse myself from that. So I will bid you a fair adieu, Peter. As the clerk, you are now
Right.
driving the ship.
Thank
Good
you.
night, all. Thank you. Thank you,
Bye.
ECAT. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Houston. Bye-bye.
So Stephanie, we have an item to address on Weber Farm about one of the design of one of the homes that has
Yeah,
already
I'm gonna
been built.
pull up the email that I sent everyone today because this came up. So I'll give you a little bit of background because I don't think the board was made aware of that. We were notified and made aware that the affordable unit was, we knew it was under construction and it was well on its way. When we learned that the construction materials were not consistent with the construction materials of the other units, and that certain architectural elements were not being incorporated. So if I could just pull up, I should have had this ready. Apologies.
Well, I think we all saw the email, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna pull up.
And then what was the issue about the plan? They gave us a plan at the last minute. showing
Yeah,
everything.
so I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
I'll get right to that.
And I actually rode my bike by today, and it does look quite a bit different than the other homes in
Yeah.
that neighborhood.
Right. So I have some pictures. So this is the house as it was approved. You can see you have this gable here, you have the elements. I think it's called bracket. And this is the front of the house with the gable details. The gable itself is a lot smaller than what was constructed, and I'll get to that and why we've been told that's the case. And you'll see the details along the columns here, and there's no porch because the grade doesn't require, no railings because the grade here does not require the railings. And then so that's the left side elevation. This is the right side elevation. The doors, the garage doors have these like transom light features above the solid portion of the garage door. And what's been constructed, you can see the gable is much larger. And the builder has told us that the reason for that is that the folks moving in wanted more bedroom space upstairs. And this was how that would be accommodated. And again, you can see the porch was being constructed with pressure treated wood and just plain plain posts and railing. And then if we go, and you can see the gable details are missing here. And the garage doors, I knew I had a picture of that. I guess it's over here. You can see here that the garage doors are just solid embossed doors. And here's a picture that shows what the abutting houses look like. So we had contacted the builder. And again, in the email to you, I mentioned that per the DHCD guidelines, affordable units like this, which is called a local action unit, it's when the community is working with the developer. And in this case, it's an inclusionary zoning where the flexible development requires certain number of affordable units, that they be indiscernible from the other units in the development. Also, the regulatory agreement for this project, for this particular unit, and the regulatory agreement is the document that outlines the requirements of the owner for the house being affordable and remaining affordable. It also requires that the unit be built in accordance with the plans and specifications as approved by the town. The marketing plan, which is the process for which they find a buyer that qualifies for the unit, also included the plans, elevations, and materials that were approved by the board. So this is just a list of all the details that were missing. It's not just those very obvious ones. The siding that has been used is vinyl. It's not the hardy board panel siding. The eaves, the window casings are different than what was approved. So you can see there were a number of items that just kind of reduced the overall aesthetics of the building. On Friday, after conversations with Mr. Andrunas, who is the builder, he said, well, you know, I'm going to have my designer revise the plans and we'll submit them, you know, to show one, the change in the gable, but also what we're going to keep. So what we received on Friday and uploaded, which I thought I included that, was a plan set that looked very similar to this, but it showed the enlarged gable and it showed the railings along here. It showed that the hardy board planking was still going to be used. It showed all the dimensional details for the trim to be the same. Then today, we received a plan that showed just the enlarged gable here with the additional trim, no trim on the side gables, the same doors and the vinyl siding with only hardy board planking in the front. And Mr. Andrunas was supposed to be at the meeting tonight, but I guess he did not come.
So does he in fact own the property?
He does.
Mm-hmm.
He does. King Builders built the first units, and this is one of the 4 remaining units that Mr. Andrunas, I guess, is going to be building.
Well, what do you think our options are?
I think the board's options are, you can certainly require that he build what was approved. And the recommendation would be with the changes. I mean, the gable has been changed because that's what the homeowner wanted. That was what was shown in the design that was sent to the board. And certainly the railings need to be in place because the elevation has changed. And by building code, it requires, that height required.
Can you show the, with like the height, just so we can understand how that works? Yeah, if you scroll down a little bit.
Yep.
So, all right, so it's really just because the top of the foundation ended up higher than expected.
Yes. Yeah.
That's not really, I mean, that's.
Right, there could have been reasons that.
I'm trying to look at like why, but is that, it's not like there's like a walkout type thing in the back, so I mean, it's just.
They may have hit high groundwater or
Yeah,
something.
I think so, right, yeah, because the septic system isn't really a huge issue
Yeah.
here, right, so.
Yeah.
Well, okay, Bob, Amas, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, what in terms of the structure of the governing documents here, what's this regulatory agreement and how does that play into our authority or options in this scenario? Because I mean, it's very clear that they're different. I mean,
Right.
it's pretty obvious that's going to stick out like a sore thumb, and that's obviously goes against what the regulatory agreement as represented is designed to prevent.
Right.
So.
Right.
We can.
I talked with town council about this, and the board should make them come into compliance with what was approved and is consistent with the rest of the homes.
Yep. Or we could allow the gable gable that was built to stay and then require compliance on pretty much everything else.
Yes.
Well, and wouldn't they at least have to file? So, is this this is a special permit, right?
Yes.
So they'd have to at least come in and ask for some sort of a modification of the plans, I would assume.
They would, yes. And that's essentially what Mr. Andrunas was supposed to be here to do. Again, what we received
But
at the end of last week seemed to be something that the board could approve.
Like a minor modification of the plan or something.
Exactly.
So, but can I, what's the regulatory agreement? Just so I understand what that is.
So the regulatory agreement is the document that governs how the affordable unit is going to remain affordable, and
but I guess like, where does it come
conditions-
from? Is that part of the special permit somehow?
No, it's part of the local action unit. It's part of deeming a unit affordable
yeah.
and qualified for inclusion on the subsidized housing inventory.
So once we include a affordable unit in a project, then it just triggers that once the affordable unit is gets built or gets assigned. Yeah.
So,
And so who enforces that though?
I guess my question is, if they are not going to comply with this, they need to come and ask for permission at least. They need to comply first. I don't think they can deviate.
No, but yeah, I think Bob's track is that they're out of compliance with what we approved, but then they're out of compliance with the regulatory agreement, which might be a different, might just be with the town itself, might be the affordable housing or just the town in general, where the selectmen are in charge, right? We just don't know.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm getting at, because it just, the way I read the email is that the regulatory agreement specifies these things, and that, I mean, there may be an enforcement mechanism built into that we're not, discussing, but I think it'd be useful to know when we have this discussion. I mean, look, I don't feel like we've got anything before us. We didn't even have this person show up to the meeting to present. I think Stephanie's done a nice job of explaining what's going on here, and it's a major problem. I mean, beyond that, I'm not sure. what else? You know, I mean, if we're just spitballing here, I mean, I don't have a big problem with the increase in the gable.
Right.
But the rest of the stuff, I mean, it sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah. No, you're right. Okay, well, maybe that's enough for now then, since well, developer or builder is not here. I think we talked about it and had put some ideas out there. So then I think Stephanie, you can look into the regulatory agreement for us.
Yep. Yeah.
I say nothing. You are not complying. Come and talk to us.
And is like the home like still being finished?
No.
Did they stop working on it until?
Yeah.
All right.
Until we decide. Okay. Well,
They've got to figure something out then.
Okay,
Yeah.
and they didn't show up tonight, so it's not like it's so we kept it open in case they changed their mind and needed to move along more quickly. Oh, now you can see why they raised it up because were those, but that garage was on that side on the original plans.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, it was probably just a water table type thing. So, are either of the attendees here for this project?
The neighbor is Mr. Colin.
Okay, but there are no hands raised because we're gonna I think we're about to continue this. Oh, there's a hands raised. All right.
Yes, my name is Leo Conlon, and thank you for your time. I'm assuming you can hear me.
Mm-hmm.
The concern that we have, I'm at 33 Matthews Circle, Weber Farm, obviously, and our concern is when we read the bylaws for the town for the affordable trust buildings, the exterior is required to be indistinguishable to the market rate units that are there. And as Stephanie so eloquently put it, she just listed everything, and she's been wonderful. I've been communicating with her on that. And like I say, it's the things like the vinyl siding, pressure treated porch, miniature windows, lack of the gable trims, all those are there. And Peter, I guess you drove by, so you also saw it. Looks like sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, it really does. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So we're not gonna make a decision tonight, and we'll get more information over the next few weeks, and hopefully the builder will be at the next meeting, and then you'll have another chance to talk a little more if you need to. But kind of had a late night tonight, so we're not doing anything anyway. So, but so thank you.
Understood, and I just welcome the other board members to take a ride by and take a look at it. You'll see that it's not even close to the theme of the neighborhood. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks. So do we really need to continue this, or we just leave it open?
Yeah, I think you can leave it open.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not right. And okay, is there anything else? Are there any items that haven't been contemplated by the chair to put on the agenda? Actually, that does fall under that, doesn't it? It wasn't on the agenda. Any other items not contemplated by the chair that on the agenda?
Peter, it's on the second page.
Oh, it's on the second page. Second one.
Other items not contemplated by the chair?
No, yeah. Okay. Well, in that case, we could adjourn if you guys want. We can hang around for a while.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin, second.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, oh, bye, Leo. Sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
All in favor? Robert?
Aye.
Most.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm in favor too. So good night, guys. Bye.
Good night.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my God.